Hey everybody, I'm here with Fabio, and we've had the pleasure of chatting quite a few times in the recent last couple of weeks, and I find him to be a really interesting guy with interesting perspectives, and we brush up against each other a little bit, which is healthy and good. Oh,
It is.
there. Sorry, I pulled a Maute there once again, or I keep the
Oh,
Hangout open
bloody
on the
hell.
yeah in the background. We should just end it right now. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Um,
the Mountie. Bloody hell.
but we've been in a lot of conversations about kind of what the state of things, more in relation to how to deal with the world and how to deal with beliefs and how to
Mm.
there's a obviously a lot of issues right now related to that. But before we get into discussing that further, I figured maybe we get to know each other a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
curious to hear about your past.
Mm.
And I did want to mention one thing is that I noticed you changed your setup a little bit this
I
week.
changed my angle. Yeah, you see,
Yeah.
so I can do that with my hand, and I can have your thoughts are mine. So that's really easy for me
Oh wow, I
to
didn't know
catch
it
your
worked.
attention.
That must be like a European version of Google or something. I don't have that capability. But I was going to say that
Oh,
your
you didn't have mind.
huh?
You didn't have mind control that side of the
No,
pond.
no.
Oh
I think
yeah, that's a bummer.
that's like in beta in Europe or something like that. I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's it.
but what I was going to say is before your format was that you're behind this desk. It was kind of distant, and it gave the appearance, I think, with your accent and everything, that you were like some classically trained philosopher who was hard at work on the world's problems. And occasionally you tune in to talk to people. It gave you this appearance of like Michelangelo's attic or something like that.
You're
Or didn't
fucking kidding me. I mean, I can put the camera just where it was before. I mean, it's no issue. I
you
can
looked
put
a
it
lot
over there.
you looked a lot smarter before. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh shit! Fuck me, silly. Oh god. I mean, if I look smarter, Jesus Christ, really? Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, I'll do anything to look smarter, for
Maybe we
free.
can
There
get
you
the
go. Let me see. Okay,
let's see if the side
there
chat
you
with the
go.
side chat. Let's see what the side chat thinks.
Yeah, is it any better? Yeah,
You
yeah.
look
I look
smarter.
smarter already.
You look like you took a break from your work to talk to us. That's what it looks like.
Oh, you. Oh, yeah. No, no. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Now we. Now we've. I mean, now that you figured that up,
Yeah.
we're fine. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So you want to know a little bit about me, huh?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
where maybe I have no clue what the over the last 50 years what the religious environment is in Italy, and I assume you grew up in Italy.
Yeah. I happen to do that. Yeah. Well. Okay. Let's start with the basics. I'm 50. I have a couple of. Well, I call them kids, but they're actually 21 and 19. So that doesn't. But anyway, they're still kids. So every parents. I got two German shepherds, and of course I got a wife. Uh, it's funny, I put it at the end. She wouldn't be so happy about that, but it was just an incident. Forget about that. Okay, I'm 50 kids and two German shepherds. That's the proper order. I'm an IT professional. I am an IT consultant. I've been doing this job for about, I don't know, 25 years, 27 years, stuff like that. I started really young. I mean, at the time, there was a lot of demand. The market was really good, so every moron could make a career in that particular line of job. And I happen to be one of those morons, far because I buried a lot of morons on my way there. So yeah. Uh, other than that, I don't know what to tell you. I really like I have no formal education in, in philosophy, or really have no, history of religion or stuff like that. To me, it's just a hobby, and religion is not really that, massive to me. I've been living in Italy for most of my life, and around here, religion is what you would call it's more of cultural phenomena. I mean, we got the Vatican over here, so you cannot get closer to God than that. But yeah, but I mean, it's more a cultural thing. You're born a Catholic, okay? And so, on paper, there are a lot of, I mean, the majority of the people in Italy are Catholics. But if you really ask them, you dig them out, they're not really that, into, well, I wouldn't say into religion, but they're not into, the problems, that might arise, from getting a religion or not. They don't really ask them too many questions. It's mostly a cultural thing. And it has this, I think it has this, this is a situation which has both its advantages and disadvantages. I mean, people might tell that it's a kind of a shallow way to be religious, which might be true. Someone else might say that actually it's a really deep way to be religious, because it ingrains in the society you live in. Your history and your culture are intertwined with religion, so they really are part of your life, even if you're not religious. If I want to go and see, I mean, I'm not religious at all. I'm what people call an atheist, and even if well, okay, well, we'll save that later. But if I want to see paintings from Michelangelo or Leonardo, chances are I got to go in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, yeah, I'm done.
So when you, in the family you grew up in, 50 years ago when you were born, was your family Roman Catholic? Were they attending church?
Yeah, they were Catholic. I got to say, my father has never been, so passionate about that.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was way more into that. My mother passed away 2 years ago, I think, and she was way more into that than my father.
Mm-hmm.
But she has never pushed anybody, one direction or the other. She knew perfectly well what I thought about, religion and stuff like that. But that was never, ever an issue, ever.
At what point did you yourself, were you no longer did you no longer consider yourself a Catholic?
About, I don't know, it was about 25, 26.
Okay.
So yeah, half of my life, let's say that. Yeah, but my reasons are not that profound. I mean, I hear people in this hangouts, they really have good reasons why they are religious or not, and I'm blown away by those people. Literally, I'm blown away, because me, honestly, I got to tell you, I never give too much thought about that. I remember, I mean, I can tell you one thing, when I believed in God, I really did believe in God. Okay, that was no ruse. It had nothing to do about the fact I was living in Italy or not. The social construct that I was talking about. That probably was the start. But when I believe, I just want to clean the table. I was really into that.
And that was like your teens, you would say, or when was that?
Up until I was 21. I
21.
would say, yeah.
So then, like 21 to 25, it kind of.
Yeah, it kind of shifted a little bit, and then I said, you know what, yeah, forget about that. But I was really into that. I was, making, what you in US call Bible studies. I was, meeting with people. I was, I was all into that. And after that, I don't know what changed. Well, again, the thing I said before, I hear people, giving a lot of thoughts about, why they're not or they are religious. And as I said before, I'm really blown away. In my case, I don't think it was that profound. I gave a thought about, why it happened, and the best explanation I can give it to you right now is it is for the same reason that Laplace did. When Laplace wrote the Mécanique Céleste, was a big issue at the time, and he presented that to Napoleon, and Napoleon read the book, and was about the celestial bodies. So how they are in the sky, the orbits and all the stuff. And Napoleon, allegedly, asked Laplace, well, I don't see God in there.
Right.
And Laplace, replied, you know what? I have no need for that hypothesis. So that, as much as I can tell you, is my position right now. And it is not so much. I'm sorry, I'll be really brief. And you got to stop me because I'm rambling a lot.
No, it's fine. Go for it.
And I still got a bottle of wine here. I still have to open that. So yeah, wait till I open that one. Then you will never be able to stop me.
Yeah, maybe you need to crack that open.
Oh yeah, I do that. But it's not. And I was talking about Laplace. He was coming from a really pragmatical point of view. It's not only that for me. One of the things that when I was in religion and stuff like that, they were talking about the moral problem. Once I realized that there are people which are morally okay, and see the words I choose. They're the most vague words you will ever see. They're the most precise. This is how life goes on. But when I meet people that are morally okay, and they're not religious, I say, okay, I mean, that doesn't work with that kind of stuff. It doesn't work with moral too, really. I have no need for that hypothesis right now. So, yeah, that's it.
I assume in your education, were you were brought up with evolution and with other things that would have made, like, you weren't, say, a young Earth believer?
Oh, you're fucking no! Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, Catholics are way more advanced than that, and I say that without shame. As a matter of fact, you know what? The funny thing is that I never thought that people really believed in a literal evolution or a 6,000 years old Earth or stuff like that for real. I mean, I thought it was just something that you see on TV to mock people. To me, it was quite a shocker to find out that people actually believe in that kind of shit. Luckily enough, I mean, in the Catholic religion, nobody believes that kind of stuff.
Right.
There is no way in hell, and I can guarantee you, if that was the case, I would not have been, done with religion at 25. I've done with religion probably at 8.
But you're familiar with the doctrine of transubstantiation, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's a big deal. Yeah.
Did you believe in that?
Absolutely, yes.
I love that. You're like, oh, of course not. Young Earth creationism, no.
Yeah.
But that the wafer becomes his flesh. Yeah, that was really important. It comes in degrees, right?
I agree with you. It comes in degrees, but keep in mind, I don't see the two things to be necessarily the same. I mean, yeah, it is true that it says it becomes literally flesh and literally blood. But again, it's kind of weird now to think, after that. But it is not the same thing, you know what I mean? I mean, because you can always say, yeah, they're literally that thing, but they're not really. I mean, you're not literally deep flesh and the blood, So the literally part is not really that literal, And I mean, you can make your mind around that. You can work through that.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
But 6,000 years old Earth. I mean, there is no way in hell you can make your head around that.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And actually, that's a very good thing about the Catholic religion. The one of the first proponent of the Big Bang theory, not the show, the actual theory, was
Yeah.
a Catholic priest.
Hmm.
They've never had any problem with science.
Right.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
All right. I have two questions along those
Cheers.
lines. Cheers. When you which one do I want to do first? So when you became an atheist, is that a big deal in Italy for Roman Catholics?
No,
It's no big deal.
no way.
Yeah. Okay. And then
No
my
way.
other question, we don't have to dwell on that. The other question I was going to ask is, I never thought about it, but I imagine there might be a situation. Do you have missionaries who come from the U.S. from evangelical churches that proselytize in Italy?
No, no,
No.
I'm laughing about because the closest thing that we have to that kind of people are Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, Jehovah's Witnesses, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are the closest thing that we have, and it's a common joke in Italy that that these people the thing that they do is to ring the bell at your house at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday.
Mhm.
That's the common joke. So yeah, I mean, actually, the funny thing is that now that you remind me, I never thought about that, of telling that, but when I was 14, 15, I actually remember that I spent a lot of Saturday afternoons looking for Jehovah's Witnesses.
Really?
Yeah, I was looking for, because I mean that was a really good way to spend a couple of hours having a laugh. I mean those
I,
guys were so thick, I couldn't fucking believe my what I was bumping into. I was
yeah. When I,
pushing them. Okay, yeah, tell me about that. They say, oh yeah, the flood. Oh really, the flood? So yeah, it was a big laugh.
it's like putting on a show or something.
It was, and that's something which has always, I kept that side.
Hmm.
Uh,
Did they ever
I
did they ever lean back in their chairs and ask you to tell them about transubstantiation?
Oh no way, no. That's a funny thing. I mean, okay, this is one thing that I really love to do, and it has not to do, only with religious people, but with all, crazy, mad theories, stuff like that. I love talking with those people.
Mhm.
I know there is something wrong with me. I know, but I can spend hours talking with conspiracy theorists or of fundamentalists, of people like that. I love that. It gives me such a joy. And again, I can spend hours talking with them, and my approach is always try to out crazy the crazies.
Hmm.
You have to get to a point where the person in front of me, which believes that the earth is flat, or we've never been on the moon, or that there are aliens at the South Pole, you've got to bring that person to the point where he says, oh no, that's too crazy.
Hmm.
And I'll make you an example about that. It's not even my example, but that's something that I do. um, one of these, crazy people, they talk about 9/11, and they say, oh, I mean, jet fuel cannot melt, the steel roads. Now, if you try to explain to them how it works, you will never get a life out of that. I mean, it's a waste of time. What you can do, on the other hand, is tell them, well, yeah, you're right, but we know that, that airplanes, they carry the liquid which is used for chemtrails,
Mhm.
and we don't know how hot that liquid burns. So kerosene plus the liquid for chemtrails might have melted the steel roads, and they go fucking insane.
That's a brilliant theory. I love that.
Yeah,
You
but
didn't
that,
really
that
like
is
him.
not mine. One which is a little bit more mine, it has to do with Man on the Moon. They say, oh yeah, the photographs are all fake, the shadows don't match.
Hmm.
Say, yeah, hold on. The problem is that The photographs were taken. We all know that we've got aliens on the moon. There are alien bases on the moon, and that's the problem. I mean, the aliens actually took the photographs and they set up the lights. But because they're aliens, they have no really idea, how shadow works and stuff like that. So they basically fucked it up. So the aliens, physically took the photograph. You got to out crazy those people, and to me, it brings me great joy.
I've done the same thing, and I honestly, there was a couple of times where what I ended up offering, or I would come in with something that I thought would be taken as sarcasm, and it was actually taken and run with by the individual, where they actually adopted and integrated in the thing that I was just trying to make a joke about. And so yeah, you have to make sure that you really clear.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you potentially fuel the fire.
Oh no, yeah, but that's the problem. I mean, if you fuel the fire, you gotta go crazier than that. Yeah. And believe me, there are plenty of theories that nobody in his right mind will believe all the crazy theories. So you just stack them up, and then they say, "Oh no, that's crazy." Oh yeah, you're right, that's crazy. I mean, alien on the moon is crazy, but not being on the moon, that's not crazy at all. Yeah. Okay, now see where your standard is. Let's start from there. You see, but it's really funny. But yeah,
so this might be a good. I know this is earlier than I usually segue, but this might be a good segue. I also, when I was an evangelical Christian in my college years, would invite Mormons in or Jehovah's Witnesses in if they came knocking, and we would talk for 4 or 5 hours. And I would really press them, and sometimes they'd even come back for another visit afterward. And I was trying to convince them or compel them to take on the Christian faith while they were trying to compel me to take on the Mormon or Jehovah's Witness faith. Huh. The interesting thing now is I look back at that time and the arguments I was putting forward, and I would have strong issues with all the arguments that I was putting forward, right? I would look back in that room and go, oh, neither of those people are are worth listening to. And this brings up a little bit of something that I've been talking to Christopher Maute about, and I think you and I have been in similar discussions in regards to when you think that you possess the truth, which we always do. We always think we have apprehended truth to some degree, and we want to talk to people about that. And how is it that you move forward knowing that in the past you did the same thing? So a recent example that I used was that back in college, I had Bible studies with gay individuals where I was trying to not only bring them to Christ, but show them that Christ could take that burden off of them. And I would love to go back in time and punch myself in the face for having those conversations, that arrogant little prick Bert Poole back then. But am I better off now, right? And how do I know? How would I know? How do I have any guarantee that what I'm actually trying to have discussions with people about now is any better off than back then?
No, I totally understand what you say, and this is actually a big. It's actually a big burden with me. You know, one of the reasons why I cannot really. Well, I won't say follow, but I cannot really get into most of the conversation that we have in this particular corner of G+, is actually the attitude you were talking about. Well, actually, there are a couple of things. The first one, it might be strange, but there is the language. I'll make an example. For many months, I was listening to people talking, and this is, well, this is a good segue to something else we can talk about later. But let me stick with that. So the first one is language, and for many months when I've heard people talking in here, I've heard, for example, the word epistemology, and I listen to the people talk. And again, as I told you, I have no formal training in philosophy, but that doesn't really matter. That's the big point. I was hearing the people talking about epistemology. And I was listening to them, and there was something wrong with me. Say, well, okay, that's not right. I mean, why are they using that word? I mean, they was talking about epistemology, and then they were talking about, what they know, the experience they have, what they know.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's wrong. Okay, the funny thing is that I am right. Epistemology in my language doesn't mean what epistemology means in your language.
Oh, that's interesting.
Epistemology, and I had to dig that out, and then I found, the reason why I did not fully understand the thing, and I talk about that with Michael Jones, Dr. Jones, the one in NCG, and I talk about one name, and he say, well, yeah, it makes sense. Okay, the funny thing is that epistemology is a word which has changed the meaning thanks to I think it was a Scottish philosopher that gave that word what you mean right now. If you say epistemology, this is what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
In my language, epistemology means the science of certain facts. It will translate in English as philosophy of science. What you mean by epistemology is actually gnoseology, from gnosis, knowledge. Mm-hmm. So you see, it doesn't really, it's not really that important. But you see, to me, sometimes there was that barrier too. So I had to not only talk with people, but actually figure out what the fuck they were talking about.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So in your language, epistemology does not mean the study of how you know things.
Epistemology, as known as in the concept that you use usually in English, is something that you use only in English.
Mm-hmm.
If you break down the word, it doesn't mean what you think it means.
Right. You're saying regarding the roots of the
right, episteme in Greek means certain knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So everywhere in the world, before that Scottish philosopher, which I can't remember the name, came on, if you said epistemology, what you were really talking about was philosophy of science,
mm-hmm.
not the philosophy of knowledge. Philosophy of knowledge is gnoseology. But again, it doesn't really matter. It's just a word. I don't really care. But it's just to tell you the idea, that was really difficult. And I don't know where I was going with that.
You're just saying that this was a barrier to you entering the discussion.
It was one of the barriers, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and also there is the fact that I was talking about before, a little bit before, is that not having any formal training in philosophy. No, we're talking about logic. Sorry, because you were talking about something that has to do with logic and rationality. If I'm not wrong,
mm-hmm.
That is another big thing, and that might come to kind of a surprise to you. The other reason I have really big difficulties in following the conversation is that I see a lot of people, they put a lot of weight on logic. And when I say logic, I mean Boolean logic. Mm-hmm. Okay. As I told you, I'm an IT professional. I'm probably the last person in the world to tell you that. But I don't really think that works in everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Can you give some example of that? You said Boolean logic. Is that what you said?
It's right. True or false. Everybody is looking for truth. That's what you're talking about. Before, the question you ask. There is the look for truth. Is it morally true or not? It's funny. The problem is that we got to come to an understanding. Are we having that conversation for the sake of conversation? I'm in. Are we having that conversation because we want to build something on our experience?
Mm-hmm.
That really hardly applies to any case of life. Boolean logic simply doesn't work in your everyday life. What it works is fuzzy logic. This is what we deal with every time. I'm sorry, there is Christopher messaging me, that fucker. So I got muted.
He called you, just for everyone, he called him.
Jesus Christ.
He called him a filthy monkey.
Oh, I
Yes.
didn't even see that. That sucker. Yeah, that
Oh,
is
he
it.
messaged. Oh, he messaged you as well. Wow, he's really going out of his way
He
to.
didn't message that one, the motherfucker. But anyway, now let's talk about monkeys. Let's talk about human people. That guy is a waste of time.
So curiously,
Mm,
you were talking about fuzzy logic.
yes.
Along those same lines, and this gets back into talking about truth.
Hmm.
What we mean by truth, and
Oh,
what. Sorry. Did you want to go ahead and?
no. Go
Okay.
ahead. Sorry.
So, Christopher and I have had a couple hangouts chatting about this and talking about the that you get into a correspondence theory, right, where you have a correspondence between your beliefs, your propositions, and what is the case, but that your beliefs and propositions are they're something indirect, right? It's not an actual representation of, it can't be a representation of what is actually the case.
Mm,
And so he's been having a little bit of difficulty in that when we have multiple people, when we have people talking to each other about what is true,
mm,
that um, that it's difficult to know what that would mean. And
yeah.
I had mentioned in our hangout about how you have a whole underlying point of a frame of reference that each person's operating under. And because I was going to bring this up with him, is I was recently thinking about Wittgenstein talks about if a lion could speak to you and tell you about his day, you wouldn't understand a word he's saying. Even though you could understand the words he's using, you wouldn't even know what it would be talking about, because you don't know what it's like to be a lion, right?
Hmm.
And it's a little bit that way. I think that I started to see that as I thought about it. That's about frames of reference. Our frame of reference is so disanalogous to a lion's that we can't appreciate what it is it's actually referring to, what it thinks about, or how it processes. And I think there's a small degree of that between us, even though we have much more in common. When we're talking, we're meaning different things with our words, and we have a different understanding. So even when we think we're agreeing, if we really dug into it, we'd probably find that we're actually not quite on the same page, right?
Yes.
So
No,
truth
you're
so truth gets tricky, right? It gets tough to talk about in a very objective way, not because there isn't a way that things are, but it's that what we mean by the things we're saying are entirely different.
you're totally right. I think that we have to we have in that conversation, we have to be really clear what we are talking about and what we are trying to achieve. Are we trying to have a mental masturbation? Okay, let's talk about, is it true or not? 1 or 0, black and white. We can do that all night.
Mm-hmm.
It will just be a mental masturbation.
If
And
if you were Christopher Maute, I'd be talking about dick cream at this point. But
yes,
but I'm
you can
trying
do
to
that.
raise the quality of the conversation here, and
Of
stay away
course you
from,
do.
because he's a
Yeah.
filthy monkey, is what he
You're
is.
right. You're right. I try to raise a conversation too. I just button my shirt. I take away my sweater, and I'm buttering my shirt.
Are we getting ready for some mental masturbation? Is that what we're doing?
No, I mean mental masturbation is okay. It's fine. I mean, masturbation is a really nice activity, and I'm all for it. I was European champion, for 5 years in a row. When I was 18 to 21. So I'm all for it. But if and I'm trying to raise a conversation around here. I don't know if you noticed that already.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, this boils down to the fact, that the Italian is not an Italian, so yes,
It's like 10.
he doesn't know what class is, so
It's like 9:30 there. So are you putting on the evening attire? Is that what we're doing?
yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So what I was talking about, we got to be really clear on what we try to achieve. If we try to achieve mental masturbation, yeah, I'm all for it, but that's a conversation. If, as I said, we try to raise the conversation and try to actually have a proper conversation in order, for you to make my life a little bit better and try to understand things a little bit more, we got to talk about a different paradigm. We got to try and see how the word really works. We when we talk about truth, we talk. There is only one definition that I will stand behind, which is, yeah, I think something is true if it well, not if it makes sense to me, but if I have enough confidence that the statement is true. Okay. And this is how people works. This is how people change their mind without feeling, dickheads. You have more information, you change the degree of confidence or the probability, people that say, of something being true, and you just go on and move on with the world. It is okay. Everybody does that. This is how we work as people. If you think that you can make your way through the world by rationalizing things, and fooling yourself that every choice you make is rational, you're a retard. You don't work like that. It has been proven that even the most basic choices that we have, most of the choices that we have, we make the choices on instinct, and then we rationalize them. But we are not aware of the instinct part, so we think that we are all making rational choices. This is something which has been proven, and nobody can. I mean, you can try to disprove that. Fucking good luck with that. But you said something really interesting about the frame of reference. That's another pivotal point to me.
Well, I think that when I was thinking about that, I think it reinforced in my mind a little bit of what you were just saying about there not being a we tend to think of in absolute terms, or in there's a we privy our own perspective as being when we feel confident that we've ascertained the truth, we kind of we kind of see that as kind of a closed case at that point. It's not the fuzzy a more nuanced view that takes into consideration how it is you're viewing things. That you could still have anomalies in there. And I guess when I think about the Wittgenstein example of frames of reference and understanding, he argued that humans have a common frame of reference. So he wasn't saying that he didn't push it as far as I did, at least in what I've read, to saying that between us we could have issues, and I don't think he wouldn't. I think he did say things like that, but it wasn't specifically regarding that example. But it makes the case to me that it's all the more important to get a fleshed out view from someone, taking into consideration a lot of other data. Like you want to let people actually air out how it is they came to that and what they're operating on, and know something about them in order to actually understand what they're actually talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like if you divorce it from the underlying structure that that developed to that point, you've really lost it all, right?
Yeah, it is really interesting, and it is also, I think, really tricky. Looking for a common frame of reference, I think it's the biggest struggle that we can face. It's not truth, moral stuff like that. It's the common frame of reference. And I will tell you, I'm not even sure that we can actually find a common frame of reference. Okay, let me talk to you about one thing that I was really passionate about, that way before. I mean, on a side note, because people they see me in these hangouts, they really have no fucking idea what I really talk about, with people like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm like that, fuck it. I had I think a 2-year-long conversation with some friends of mine, really good friends of mine, all in my fields, about AI. And about and I'll come to your point of frame of reference. It's kind of long, but you see where I'm going. and the fact, that there is a big discussion right now in IT, and cybernetics and stuff like that, if we can actually replicate a human brain, if you can save a human brain and put it in some kind of Android or some kind of computer, stuff like that. This is not only a philosophical discussion, but it is really interesting because it's both a technical and philosophical discussion. During those 2 years, I was among the proponents that we will never be able to do that. And it's not a technical problem. It is a problem of frame of reference.
Mm-hmm.
I recently got in touch with a math professor which teaches in Berkeley, at UC Berkeley. His name is Edward Frankel. Mm-hmm. And he's made some videos on number 5, stuff like that. He's a really nice guy. I spoke with the guy. When I went to the US, I happened to meet the guy, and I wrote with that guy. And the reason I'm citing him is that I had a brief, exchange of letter, because he came from, he came to the same conclusion, and he is a mathematician. Basically, the example that he gave, you can find it online, so I'll keep it short. You people can find the video on number file. But he gives the example of a vector. If you have a space, you can have, basically, you put a frame of reference, a point of reference, a starting point, a origin point, and you can draw a vector, okay? A vector is just, a line which connects 2 dots with a direction. That's a vector. There is nothing. It has its own life. It has its own feelings, its thoughts. He is a vector. Now, what we can do in mathematics is that I can put a frame of reference. And this is where the tricky part comes in, because it's not easy working with vectors. So you have to put an X and Y coordinates, on the same plane. When you put an X and Y coordinates, you can actually represent that vector with a number, depending, on the projection on the 2 axes. Now, it would be safe to say that you can represent that entity, a vector, which has had his own life. He basically was son of a vector. He has, he dreams of being, a bigger vector. I don't know what the fuck the vector does, but he's a real entity. You can represent that entity with a number, with a couple of numbers. So you might say, yeah, I mean, I can clone that vector. I can make the same vector, with just 2 numbers. That's not really true, because the reason you have those 2 numbers is because you have established a frame of reference. If I twist the frame of reference, I will have 2 other numbers. So which couple of numbers does really represent the vector? Mm-hmm. And the vector was there before I put the reference. You see what I'm going to? So that was the discussion which was going on, and this is why I was, so glad that you mentioned the frame of reference. Frame of reference is something that we try to picture our own experiences, and we try to map the experiences within that frame of reference. Mm-hmm. But we have to agree on the frame of reference. Yeah. Because unless we do that, everything is pointless. You can say that you love your wife, and I can say that I love my wife. That doesn't make any sense at all. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know what is your frame of reference for love or mine. It's the same with friendship. And sorry, I'll quit because I understand I'm rambling right now. There was a question someone asked to me, some time ago. Say, "Oh, do you have friends on the internet?" I have no friends on the internet, none at all. I have people which consider a little bit more, but I have no friends with people that I only knew on the internet. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is that my frame of reference for friendship is, well, it's even, there was a reference, I think it was an Arab philosopher or someone, I can't remember who he was, that he said, you're a friend with someone only if you have exchanged a fist of salt with a guy. Basically, that you have a lot of meals together, and salt was really precious, so you have to have a lot of interaction. My frame of reference for being a friend is this. It's 3 a.m. at night. I am blown away for whatever reason. Something bad has happened. I'm in shambles.
Mhm.
I can go to a house, a friend's house, ring the bell at 3 a.m. at night, and we'll ask no questions, and he will, it will, welcome me in his house and give me a couch to sleep.
Mhm.
That, to me, is what a friend is for. This is what a friend is. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, I'm quite snob, but this is my reference, and I'm not saying that's a correct one.
Right.
But
you have a, well, okay, yeah. So I see that as, well, number one is you would have a word for the people who you occasion on the internet, who you enjoy the company of. You just wouldn't use friends. You would need another term to be able to describe them from absolute strangers who you have no
yes,
history with, right?
yeah,
So your definition for friends is a word that gets a little more, it's a little more exclusive, the category as to what gets put into that category of.
absolutely,
Yeah. Yeah. And I
But
think
the problem is that it is the same word for me and
but
for you. It's the same word. It's
right,
just the reference which changes,
right.
and that's a
Well,
big deal.
I think your frame of reference is what dictates the definition. So you have this, you've put a lot of
Yes.
thought into this. You have a just in your articulating the story about the fistful of salt. You've given some thought to, well, what is a friend, right? And maybe I'm a little more flippant. I throw that around. I have lots of friends who you wouldn't categorize as friends, but that a little bit is defined by our frame of reference. That's a based on the way that I see frame of reference is merely the experiences you have that inform your worldview. So you have, we each have nuanced definitions and nuanced propositions regarding the world, and even what those propositions, what the content of those propositions are, is dependent on the reference within which, the frame of reference within which that they were formed.
Yes.
So then when we're having a conversation, as close as language can get us to having some sense of what each other means, we're going to not have it's not going to be perfectly parallel or perfectly consistent between the two of us as to what we mean by something. We can't have the same frame of reference. We have different lives that have led us to where we are. Right.
Well, it's not that we can have the same frame of reference. I think this is the other problem that we have sometimes in the conversation, and that's why I really enjoy talking to you. In one hangout, I think a couple of weeks ago, I said, I'm not really sure if me and Bert agrees. And everybody says, well, hold on a second. I mean, I met you a couple of times. I think we're going on. I say, yeah, it seems to be, but I don't know. I've got a good vibe. Honestly, I've got a really good vibe, but I don't know. But I can tell you for a fact, for example, that I enjoy talking with you, not because your frame of reference might be the same as mine, because I have no fucking idea what your frame of reference is. I even have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. But I can guarantee you that I spot honesty in you. So I have no problem speaking my mind. I have no problem, exchanging with you my life experience. I have no problem telling you stuff that I never told anybody. Because I can recognize the honesty. I mean, I can feel the honesty. I don't know if you're honest or not. You might be the biggest. I mean, you might be the biggest douche so far in the world. But
well, actually, the way that I'm interacting with you right now is the way that you interact with the conspiracy theorists. I'm just trying to feed you along a little bit of a story just to keep you going.
Which is really good. I mean, you learn something, and it means you're honest. Even if you're being a douche, being a kind of a douchey honesty stuff. I mean, I gotta make a new category for you. But that's really funny because you've learned something from me, and you're being a douche. So you're honest and a douche. That's really cool.
I'm an underdressed douche, apparently, though.
Yeah. Huh.
Very casual douche going on over
That's
here.
really cool, actually. Yeah, you had me there. Jesus.
No, but actually, I do. I would say that actually our difference is the fact that I actually enjoy talking to you because I know that you're coming at things differently. You have a very different cultural upbringing than I do. You have a very different. The political landscape in Europe is fascinating to me because I can't appreciate what that must be, and so it's fertile ground. There's a lot of things for me to learn there in terms of your experience. And it helps kind of break me of my own biases and my own that, oh yeah, you know what, there could be another way to look at this, right? And I enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I thank you. I mean, the fact is, that what I'm really looking for, and I think it boils down, to the big question: why the fuck are you in these hangouts? Okay, because I think everybody has to ask this question, every so often. And the reason why is that I really like talking to people. I really do. I told you I'm an IT professional. I've been there for more than 25 years. Basically, what my job boils down right now after those years is being 80% a psychologist and 20% being a technician.
Mm-hmm.
I'm dealing more with people than with machines. And most of the people are my people which work with me or for me or whatever. So it is really, really, really fucked up. But the reason why I've been able to stay in this line of work for so long is that I really love talking to people. I'm fascinated by people. I'm blown away by how the people think, especially if they come from different cultures. And I love how I don't really like the topic of generally these conversations on G+. But I love how people get to some points which to me are completely pointless. I mean, I don't give a flying fuck about how people talk about philosophy, for example, mostly in these hangouts. Mm-hmm. But I'm fascinated by how people get to that point.
It's like me with F1.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can totally relate to that. You're right. Yeah. You're totally right. If you don't know if you're not interested in F1 from a technical point of view, you just want to know why the fuck is these people watching that shambles of a show. You're right. You're totally right. So the show is not important. Mm-hmm. It's the people watching which is important. Yeah, I totally dig it. Mm-hmm. I'll make you an example. I wrote a message. You probably know the guy. He makes a lot of videos on YouTube. He has a channel called carnieris.org.
Right, yeah.
And I wrote him a couple of letters, messages. And I tried to pull the guy towards a branch of, and again, I know shit about philosophy, and this is probably why it fascinates me, I mean, I know a little bit of mathematics and logic, and I'm bored to death with that. I don't know about philosophy. Wow, I think it's the shit. Probably if I knew a little bit better, I'd be bored to death with that. But I tried to pull him in something that I've never seen talked about in those hangouts, and I would be fascinated by that, which is what the fuck is the aesthetics?
Right. Yeah.
Why the fuck nobody talks about aesthetics?
Yeah, it's true.
As far as I know, there is a philosophy of aesthetics. Okay, I mean, Kant, he had an approach to aesthetics, which he said he defined the aesthetics judgment as universally subjective. How does this doesn't blow your fucking mind? I mean, Kant, which is not the last person you can find in line, buying a fucking iPhone, he defined aesthetics as universally subjective. Mm-hmm. Boom! I can hear, my brain, exploding,
Yeah. No, it's true.
There is another philosopher called Garroni. He was an Italian one. He went a little bit farther than that, and he said that he defined aesthetics as a I don't know how the fuck I remember those shit. I mean, again, there's something wrong with me. He said it is a no special philosophy, of the aesthetic condition of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what he said is that, he said, forget aesthetics being just a philosophy of art. It is a subject per se. Art becomes a specimen. It's not the subject. It is, aesthetics is how we perceive, things. When we say, for example, that something moral is good or bad, and then we look at a painting and we say, oh, this painting is beautiful or not. Are we applying the same criteria? I mean, how can you not see that we're using the same word and we just pretend to change the frame of reference depending on what we say? Because we never say, oh yeah, this painting is morally good. Mm-hmm. But you can say that a moral action is beautiful.
Now, I tend to view, Ozzy did mention in the chat that he speaks about, he talks about aesthetics every once in a while. I actually, Gary Edwards, I think actually, I've enjoyed
yes, you're right. You're right.
I've enjoyed being subscribed to him because he does actually daily post things in regards to questioning aesthetics and questioning things that I think other people aren't necessarily talking about. I've actually been kind of interested and curious by his inspired by his frequent posting about it.
No, you're right. I mean, I think that this is one of those topics that, I think the biggest problem with talking about this thing is that you really, 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 really have to be honest with people when talking about that. Mm-hmm. You gotta start from the starting point that you really know shit about that, and you're just trying to express your stuff. But the funny thing is that a lot of people have been dealing with that. I just remember, Nietzsche, for fuck's sake. I mean, another, poor guy, in line of buying another fucking iPhone. I don't know. He said that truth, and here's the kicker, truth, like beauty, shows us only when it's veiled.
Only when it's veiled. Is that what you're saying?
Veiled. Sorry. Yeah. Veiled is. Yeah.
Veiled. Yeah. Veiled.
Veiled is.
I don't eat veal.
I do. Jesus Christ, we're not friends anymore. Veiled.
I had my fistful of salt all ready to go.
Yeah, Jesus. I mean, what the fuck are you going to put that salt? On bloody vegetables, for fuck's sake? Are you a vegetarian?
I'm gonna give it to Maute, actually.
Oh no! Hold on a second. Have I been talking for an hour with a fucking vegetarian?
No.
Oh, okay, cool. No. Yeah.
The rest of my family are fucking vegetarians. But
Jesus! So, well, it's okay. I mean, so the rest of your family basically eats the food that your food uses as food. Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
Well, you have a complex argument justifying your meat eating. Sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically a vegetarian. I eat highly processed vegetables, and by processed I mean they've been processed by a cow, or or a deer, or whatever, for a rabbit, and they've been processing vegetables all their life, and they're giving me just the purest form of vegetables, and that's why I thank them, and that's why I eat them. Yeah.
So you had mentioned the what is it that you said, the universal subjective experience or something like that, or
Kant. It was Kant who said that aesthetics judgments were universally subjective.
Mm-hmm. Now, I would be of the persuasion that not unlike my view of morals, that aesthetics would be objectively caused in subjects. So that there are reasons why I find certain things attractive or not, and that those are common between us because they're related to facts about us, even if I can't raise those to awareness, like why I value them, but there's a reason why all, Homo sapiens will find certain things tasty and certain things not, or certain things appealing to look at and certain things not. There's a commonality to our structure, right? I mean, you would agree with that or no?
I would agree with you in principle. I will never say the way that you said, just because of one word. And I totally agree with what you said, but one word. You said objective. I think that the moment that you're talking about morals and you put the word objective, you're in for a big amount of problems. That's why I so love.
I think if you say subjective, you're in for a big load of problems as well.
Well, no, I mean, what the fuck? I mean, it's subjective. I'm not in for any problems.
Well, it's
I mean,
subjectively,
it's
subjectively experienced, but it could be objectively derived.
And we're back to the frame of reference problem that we had before.
Sure, yeah. There's other factors.
I don't know. I mean, I think that and this is why even if you I know that if you boil down the phrase universally subjective makes probably no fucking sense at all. Okay, I'm fully aware of that, but for the sake of me, I cannot find a more elegant way to define what I think that morals are.
Yeah, I could see it as universe. It's universal in that it's subjectively experienced, but in terms of how subjects experience it, that could be related to a objective fact that is common to them.
Yeah. No, I understand. Again, I think it all boils down to the fact of who I'm talking to. Okay. Mm-hmm. If I'm talking to you, I have no problems. Not at all. If I'm talking to someone else, I've got to go through such a fucked up, list of things that they got to explain it to me. Like, okay, what do you think objective is? What do you think truth is? Is true, white or black? What the fuck? I mean, and you get lost in all these things. If I'm talking with someone which is, really honest, talking about that kind of things, I got no problems whatsoever. I mean, you can tell me, yeah, I think there's some objective things, and we process them, subjectively. I'm cool with that because I know what you mean. I don't really listen to what you say. I know what you mean. I know where you're coming from. Okay, mm-hmm. You will never. I mean. You will never ask me those fucked up questions like, oh, is it always wrong to kill children? Fuck you. Really? Really? I mean, have you ever been shot at? Have you ever been a children being killed? Have you ever been in that situation? What the fuck are you talking about? And I mean, you're asking these questions to me? I mean, are you fucking insane? So again, are we having a mental masturbation, or are just we having a conversation between two human beings? I try to learn from your experience. You try to dig out from the mess that I'm doing right now, and you try to say, oh, okay, I'll think about that. I think that he said he talked for an hour about shit, but I think about that anymore. And to me, that's the biggest success I can ever aspire to. And that's another reason why I have really no fucking idea why people want to talk with me, because I think I'm rambling for an hour and saying absolutely nothing. I think I'm one of the most inconsequential persons ever, to show up in these hangouts.
I totally agree.
Fuck you. Yeah. See,
oh my God.
Okay, can I just say one thing?
What?
Bert. No, I'm talking to Bert. Shut the fuck up. I mean. Bert said, enough with, the fake Italian style and shit like that. Okay, just look at that mongrel over there.
Oh my God.
Look
Says the guy who has an audition for Spandau Ballet later. Look at that fucking new wave 80s tie look.
Listen, man, I've got a shirt, I've got a tie, and I am in my underwears. So you
Are you
cannot get
serious?
more classy than that.
Oh my god, I fucking hate you.
So look at that, pathetic excuse
Yeah,
for a
look at
chimpanzee.
this. Look at this
And look at
beautiful,
that.
Fabio, I have one question.
wonderful Italian-American deliciousness.
Are
Shut
you
the
wearing
fuck
dress?
up, Deidre. Deidre is
Hey,
talking to me.
I'm not Effie. Stop that.
No, I'm telling Christopher to shut the fuck up because Golden Speckle wants to talk with me. Shut the fuck up, Christopher, please.
I just want to say Fabio's probably wearing dress socks right now. Like he might be in his underwear, but it's probably black dress socks, and your style is
Let
now
me
ruined.
check.
And flip-flops.
Yeah,
There you go.
Oh,
Top black
Jesus.
socks.
It's-
Top black socks.
Look at
You're
and
totally
look how high
right.
up they
I
go.
see
They're fucking
pants.
stockings.
I see pants.
It's actually but they're just over there.
Yeah, he
But,
spray paints his legs.
Yeah. Because I want my balls to be fresh, so basically I pull down my trousers. But
Because
I
they
got
need to be
like-
supernatural. Like Fabio
Yes.
meatballs need to be like Maddie meatballs.
No, I'll tell you one
Supernatural.
thing.
To the
I've
table.
always said
I hate balls. They're gross.
my knees are always cold, so I got to take my trousers down to the knees and keep my balls fresh.
My knees are always cold.
Yeah. I mean, after years of riding motorcycles, which is something that we never talked about that, and we have to do another 5-hour hangouts on motorcycles, because that would be interesting.
Sure.
There you go. So the fucker is here, huh? Jesus Christ, damn
Yeah,
mothers.
fake Italian.
So Christopher, you were listening in. Did you catch the little bit I said about the frame of reference, and how did that resonate with you, or did it not?
I liked it, but it feeds into the question that I was asking. If you're going to have a frame of reference, then how can you have beliefs about what is true if everybody's frame of reference of what reality is, and that reality feeds into truth, is changing? So that's that's the very thing that I keep thinking about.
You know what I think it is? You know what I think it is that so you have facts which are the case, whatever it is, right? But there are facts. Oh my gosh,
Fabio's just taking
Fabio.
it all off. Here we go.
Jeez, what are you wearing sandpaper or something? What the hell's going on?
What the fuck are you talking about? I just pulled my tie out. Jesus Christ, you guys are the worst. Bloody hell.
Really?
The only people I respect are... Oh, okay, shut the fuck up, everybody. Okay, who said that? Oh, Seamus went in anger. So, oh, shut the fuck up, everybody. By the way, I love Seamus. When he's not acting like that, it's one of my favorite people. But anyway, so shut the fuck up, everybody.
Are all Italians dictators? Is this a thing?
No. Bloody hell, Deidre. I mean, give me an opening. I was vouching for you. I wanted, those two chimpanzees to shut up because I was vouching for you. I just want to say before I forget, I saw the hangout that you made yesterday with Shanna. Okay, I have just one thing to show, and please bear with me because that lady. I mean, I love Shanna. She's really cool. I really love her. Shut the fuck up, you. There is one thing I got to show. She says she's a big, Doctor Who fan. Okay, she can totally die because this is what I have in my house on my wall. So Shanna can suck it.
It's a whole TARDIS, like.
It is part of a TARDIS, and I'll show you what part of the TARDIS. This is an installment that we made on. There is a convention in Lucca called Lucca Comics. It's twice as big as the San Diego Comic Con, and this is an installment that we did 2 years ago. Me and my brother, we basically built.
Yeah, just like Italian Americans are twice as big as Italians. Anyway, I'm sorry, I switched to braciole and sausage.
Do I have to show you my dick?
I just want to say, yay, San Diego Comic Con, yay.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, when it gets double what we have here, it's going to be cooler. But I digress. So I was just talking about Shannon because I love her. And by the way, it's really cool. I mean, Christopher is back, and two of my favorite people, on so far in this environment. I mean, Christopher Shannon is there.
That's right.
What? Why are you doing that, Christopher?
Oh, nothing. Hey, I'm just
Trying
saying.
to seduce you.
I very much like the fact that Shanna's back as well.
No. I think you're playing with me.
Hey,
By the way, Chris,
I am not playing with you. All I'm saying is, if Shanna Rocky's fucking cheating on me, I'm gonna kill her with my dick when I visit her over the holidays again.
What the hell?
What?
what? Oh,
What?
really? Although, I mean, I remember you were talking in some hangouts. There were some people visiting you from the hangouts. I mean, isn't it Shanna for crying out loud?
Yes. It's true, and that's
It's true.
I'm claiming her. She has been claimed.
She's been claimed.
That's right, motherfuckers. That's how you claim someone online. Timestamp that, cunts.
I won't believe it until she claims you back.
Oh, well, I guess that's just a matter of time, huh?
Okay. I mean, this hangout, is immediately started to be really more interesting than I thought it was.
Anyway, this isn't about me and Shanna. This is
Yeah.
about how much of a fucking greaseball you are.
Fuck me. There you go.
Okay, all right, moderator's taking control here.
Yeah.
What just happened?
Okay, so what I was saying about
Shanna
5
just
minutes
claimed
ago,
you.
what I was saying about 5 minutes ago before we started obsessing on Maute killing Shanna with his dick is there, I'm gonna get going with my hands again. You ready for this, Maute?
Yeah. It's a little this,
It's
and
a little,
some of this,
it's a little.
and then this.
So you have facts, right? So you have things that are out there that our propositions are attempting to relate to, and when we say that they're true, the truth is merely the interaction between those two things, and that's going to be different for each of us. But but where it's contacting it, that is the thing that we're saying is true.
Say that one more time, because.
So what I'm saying is that, right? Sure. So. The facts.
Is that what is true? Because if that's what comports with reality, and we're admitting that reality is an objective outside of our skin other,
Sure.
Then is that truth? Because that changes the definition.
Those are the facts, right? So those are that is the state of affairs. That is whatever is the case, and what we mean when we say truth is merely that the proposition and what is the case have a relationship. That somehow they are interacting in a way where the one is there's a relationship there. It's not saying that this proposition is what is the case. It's simply saying that there's a correspondence between the two that we've hit upon, right? That when we do something, it's going to interact in a certain way. So truth is about the relationship. Truth is not the facts. It's not the state of affairs. That my propositions are true about the state of affairs. That's what we're saying, right?
And so this is kind of the point that you brought up when we were hanging out. The way that you like the way people like Ozzy delineate what is corresponding, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's co-responding. It's
when we say it's true, we're merely saying that there's that the proposition that we formed is behaving. What we mean by that is actually corresponding to what is the case in some way where we think we're onto something, but it's not. The truth is merely the relationship between those two. It's not what is the case, and it's not our proposition. It's about the relationship between them.
That works for me, but I guess I'm still trying to figure out what the value is. What is the value of admitting that there is something outside of us that is objectively true, when that definition of truth, that objective definition of truth, is different than the relational definition of truth that has to do with the way we perceive it?
Well, what we're saying is that there's an objective state of there's a way that things are. There's a state of affairs, and when we're saying that something is objectively true, I think we're more saying that all observers should come to the same to the same conclusion. They should come to the same the proposition should ring true for each individual. But yeah, I guess I mean it gets a little bit tricky because, as I've been saying, what we mean by our propositions is probably going to be a little different. So, wish that guy from Canada would jump in here. That'd be super handy. But
Which Canadian? There's so many.
oh, I'm let's see, which one do I want to pick?
Okay, I'm sorry. In light of what you two guys were saying, is the Higgs boson true?
Is the Higgs boson true?
Well, when you're talking about when you say the Higgs boson, you mean something about something that is in reality, right? That is the case. That is
No. It is fucking. I mean, if it's true, it is bloody real.
No, but what you're saying when you say Higgs boson, there's a description there that you're using, right? There's something that you mean by the Higgs boson, and that's corresponding to something in reality, some fact about reality.
Yeah.
Right.
Does it really correspond or not? Because this is where you guys were going to, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I would
say correspond to reality. Is the Higgs boson true?
Well, what you mean by
for some reason that sounds like a weird question, but I like the fact that it's putting me back on my heels. Like, is it true?
Okay,
it's potentially material. It is potentially observable, and that's what we're trying to do right now.
But what is true? When we say the word true, we're talking about true. We're not saying is it a fact. We're asking if our proposition about the fact is true.
No, I mean, I'm asking you if the Higgs boson is true in the sense that it corresponds to reality. It is real. Is that particle true? Does it correspond to reality? Keep in mind one thing, because Chris was thinking about that. Yeah. This is the history of the Higgs boson. The Higgs boson was theorized, I think, 20 years ago. Mathematically, okay? They've been looking for that ever since. There have been some experiments made in CERN, where I've worked for a little bit. I'm just bragging, but it's true. Yeah, fuck it. I mean, it's good in my CV.
Humble brag.
You worked there before you worked there before it broke, right?
You worked there before dirt existed.
Fuck you, both of you, you bloody chimpanzee. I'm getting to a point. They made experiments. They've lasted years. The experiment was, trying to find the particle, and the way you find that particle, you find the charge of that particle. Okay, now the particle is supposed to have one charge, and it has a range. The last experiment, I mean, they're making further experiments. The last experiment is dead in the middle of that range. So it probably is or not, but is it true?
Well, regardless of what label we put on it, it might be a part of nature that we have yet to discover, and once we discover it, if we discover it, and we can kind of fit it into our matrix of understanding, we might later find out that it is part of something larger or smaller. I mean, depending on how you want to look at it. So does that make it true? But that feeds into the fact that there is an objective reality.
So you're telling me
we are incrementally discovering.
So you're telling me that you can basically build a whole model of reality with a particle that up until a couple of years ago wasn't even, discovered, okay? You didn't know if it exists, but you can build a model, a predictive model of reality, which entangles something that you have no fucking idea if it's true or not. Well, and the model is true.
Well, what I'm telling you
I
is
would
that
say
we're
yes.
building...
The simple answer is yes.
Yeah. You don't see the problem in that?
I think you're building you're building on something and trying to flesh out what it is. Similar to evolution, right? Evolution has had many manifestations over the years in terms of what we mean by evolution or what we mean by the theory of evolution. And we still have a underlying thread of continuity between those different manifestations as to what it is we're referring to, but the manifestation has been entirely different, right, throughout the progress of fleshing out what that theory is. So when we say the Higgs boson from the 60s, it is potentially a different thing than what we mean from 3 years ago. Right?
No, you're right. You're right. That's why I specifically said, regardless of what happened a couple of years ago. I mean, they found the particle. Still, the charge is not determined. They found the particle. I found fascinating that if we apply the strict, definition of true as what it corresponds to reality, I'm probably naive. I don't know, but I find fascinating that you can build a whole predictive model, which is, it cannot get as much real as that. You build a model, it predicts stuff, and stuff happens. I mean, the fucking model works. There is no way in that. In that model, you put something that you have no bloody idea if it exists or not.
So
and that thing. Sorry, and then I quit. That thing also, the fascinating thing to me is that thing is not, like a detail of the model. It is dead in the middle of that model, and the only way you say, oh, that particle exists is because because everything else exists, that one has to exist, but it might not exist. And if it doesn't exist, that model doesn't work. And you know what? We have another model which is predictive of more or less the same reality, which might work. I found that, mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Am I stupid?
The way that I don't think you're stupid. But
I do.
But what I would say about you is we have certain. I mean, there are certain propositions which are trying to inform something that we are proposing, right? And if it's the case that we find that thing is not the case, the propositions, the areas where it did contact don't go away, right? And so we fill in. We know that it's a little along the lines of science never telling us what is the case. It only tells us what isn't the case, right? Like we're bumping it up against enough things that we kind of flesh out a vague impression that only gets a little bit better, but never is absolutely certain. And the way that I think about it is, if you blindfolded me and had me walk across the room, I might hit the couch and actually think that the couch is a certain way, but I might actually find that my initial stabs at that are actually quite wrong. It doesn't mean that I didn't hit the couch when I walked there, but it might be that the orientation is entirely different. Or
no, it's even worse than that. It's even worse than that. I blind you and I tell you there is a couch, and you got to avoid that. And you will never know if the couch is there. But you live your life as if the couch is there, and you will never bump in the couch. So you have a space in your reality which you will not use, because the rest of the model fits the fact that you got a couch in the middle of that.
Well, I have a problem with that example, though.
I know you got a problem. I mean,
no. The problem I have is that you've told me that there's a couch, but you've not given me any reason to think that there's a couch there, right? Like if you can tell me that.
I give you the example that you live in a room, that by those standards, all the rooms are shaped that way. They have got a couch in the middle, and everything else in the room fits.
As long as I walk and don't hit anything, I don't have any reason to think that there's a couch there, right? Like as so long as as I wave my arms out and only ever hit air, I don't know what the shape of the room is. I have to actually contact and come. Like I have to predict that my arm will move forward and have it not move forward, and discover that there's something there that. So
if I tell you that my house has windows, you got to see the windows in order to believe them.
Well, I need to have some reason to think that it's the case, right?
But it's a house.
Well, this example's breaking down, I think.
No, I mean, it's a house. I'm describing you the reality I'm actually right now. I mean, I cannot get more real than that.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a bloody house, and it has a window. Do I have to show you the window, really?
Well, no,
Yeah.
but you could
got a window, right?
But you could be in a room with no windows, and I wouldn't know it. Right?
I could well be, but I got central heating. You see, I got a desk over here. I got a computer. There is a door here which you can open. You see, I mean, it's over there. My wife is over there. It's a house. Bloody hell, those are walls. You see, I can turn off and on the light. It's a bloody house. So I got a window over there. Do I have to show you the window?
Yes, because I think you live on a set.
There you go. Why you think I live in a set? I'm telling you I live in a house. I live in a bloody house.
Because you're working too hard to convince me that you live in a house.
No. You see, my wife is
keep it down in there.
Is that your wife or is that a paid actor?
Yeah. She said, "You called me. Do you want me to open the window?" That's what she said.
All right, I'm gonna throw it to the man in the cafe there before he loses his connection.
Yeah.
I'm actually not in a cafe. I'm in an unused upstairs bedroom in my house. So it may sound very echoey.
It actually does, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So,
maybe I'll move my microphone over here.
No, it's okay. It's good.
Okay. One thing that confuses people in these discussions about truth and fact is, and people have heard me say this before, I'll say it again because it's especially relevant here, is that the word fact gets used in two very distinct senses. Sometimes we use the word fact merely to refer to a state of affairs, a way that reality is, right? So there's a fact of the matter about how many blades of grass there are in my backyard, even though nobody knows how many blades of grass there are in my backyard. We might estimate, but we don't know. Or how many particles there are in the universe at this particular moment in time. We don't know the answer to that, and we don't even have a procedure, a way of answering that question right now. We don't even have the hopes of the prospects of a future procedure for answering that question. But we also use the word fact in another sense, a more restrictive sense, a narrower sense of demonstrable fact or proven fact or established fact. And very often when we speak of facts, people get confused, and you're talking about a fact of the matter, a way that reality is, a state of affairs, quite apart from whatever we know and however we might come to know. And then fact in the other sense of the word, meaning a demonstrable fact, an ascertainable fact. There may be facts that are not yet in the evidence, but there may also be facts that are unascertainable. There are surely ways that reality is right now that we don't know and will never know, right? That sort of confounds the problem when people start talking about truth, because when they're talking about truth, they're trying to refer to the relationship between a proposition, a statement that describes a fact, and the fact.
Yeah.
So we can speak of truth and we can speak of reality, but I think we need to understand that reality is what we're trying to talk about when we speak of the truth, right? So you can't say, for instance, of a chair that the chair is true. You can say the statement that is a chair over there. You can say of the statement that it's true. Yeah. Statements can be true. Propositions can be true. Sentences can be true. Beliefs that express sentences, propositions, and statements can be true. But states of affairs aren't true. States of affairs simply are, right? You can't say of a state of affairs that it's false. You can only say of a statement describing a state of affairs that it's false, right? So, this microphone here isn't true. It just is. But if I say this is a microphone, that statement is true. So truth is a predicate that is a term that is predicable or can be applied to propositions, beliefs, statements, sentences, but you don't apply the term truth to the object about which you are trying to utter a true statement, proposition, statement, or belief. So that's the idea. That's the distinction that has to be borne in mind. And so truth is about reality, but truth isn't reality. It's about reality, right? And that sort of clears up a lot of confusions and equivocations that happen, because, of course, when we're trying to, whenever you utter a constative sentence, whenever you simply describe something about reality, you are striving to describe it truly, presumably, if you're being sincere, right? But that doesn't mean that you are necessarily insisting that you couldn't be wrong and that you're absolutely in possession of a demonstrable fact, right? So, for instance, I will venture the following that there is intelligent life in the universe besides us. It's a belief that I happen to hold. I don't have very good reasons for that, but I think it's true. Okay, but I certainly don't think that it's a demonstrable fact. Far from it. But I think it's a fact. I just don't think it's a demonstrable fact. But in any case, in both senses of the word fact there, we are talking about reality. So just think of truth as a predicate that applies not to reality, but to statements about reality. But they are statements about reality, okay? So you have to sort of, again, don't confuse the map with the territory. The map isn't the territory. The map is about the territory in the same way that statements, propositions, sentences, and beliefs are about reality when they are descriptive statements. Anyway, that's a...
No, I mean, I think it all boils down, to what we're talking about between me and Bert. You also have to take in consideration what kind of frame of reference are you using, and if you're just using, the term truth as something which either is or is not. Again, this is, it is. I found that that kind of approach useful. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I've been building my job on things that are either are or are not. Okay, the algorithm, the programs I wrote, stuff I wrote, it boils down to the fact there is something true or not true, and they behave accordingly. So it's a useful tool. It is something that is nice if you can exactly describe what you have to do if you have a specific algorithm. But again, I stand by my position, that it is not the way that we usually behave. I mean, in everyday's life, we try to boil down those things to either, black and white, true or false, and we try to, to boil down to absolutes because it makes our life so much easier. The fact of the matter is that we biologically, I don't know how the hell, to be more clear, we don't work that way, I'm not the same person as I was, 5 seconds ago. I might have changed my mind on something, something might happen. We are constantly evolving. Something which was, to me was, absolutely certain 5 seconds ago, might just, change my mind. Might happen, to not to be true anymore. And it might be something that I actually base my life on. I believe that I love my wife, and you know what? In 5 seconds she's gonna run away. With the most retarded guy I can think of. That's gonna destroy my life.
Yeah.
Is it going to happen? Yeah, I hope not. For fuck's sake, she's still there. Yeah, I mean, but it might just be happening. And this is how we work. This is the way we work. When we're talking about the discussion with those guys about AI, if you can reproduce AI, that was actually one of the crucible of the problem. Even if we get to the conclusion that it can actually reproduce the mind by statements of true and false, and you can actually build up an algorithm which can replicate your mind. Unless we say, you know what, you are who you are, regardless of what you do, and regardless of the time which is passing, regardless of the process that you have, unless you do that, the best you can have is a photograph of you in that moment, which is not you the moment you finish the process. So even if you do that, it's not you anyway. So what the fuck is good for?
But you're modeling it as you go, right? So it is your model, your current model, and even what you meant about something. Like I have things that I held as true, a year ago, which are still generally the same, but have a slightly different shift on them.
Have it changed?
And so you're right. So you're constantly changing and shifting. This is a dynamic process. You're never like. You never know actually. You're never in possession of actually 100% what is the case. So you can always learn a little more about it, or you can always there's always room for refining or tossing out or revising. Maybe you didn't have what was true. Maybe your proposition wasn't true. And so I don't think it's a big problem that it's dynamic. But I did want to ask Ozzy about that the frame of reference issue where. When you and I agree that something's true, or we have a conversation about it and we kind of lay it out, there's a lot there's a lot unsaid there in terms of underlying propositional content. And is that an issue that, I mean, it certainly gives me, it makes me hesitant to be so dogmatic, or maybe dogmatic's the wrong word, strong, I guess, in my assertions, because even when I think that I'm actually understanding, for instance, what you say or what Christopher says, and I agree with it, and we've come to some conclusion, it could be the case that I have a shifted perspective on it, and so. And that's because of that underlying structure. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure what the question is to me, but this is, I think, in part because I joined the Hangout late and I missed a lot of talk about frame of reference, and so I feel like I'm swimming a little bit here. I
can summarize really quickly. As I was bringing up how Christopher and I have had a couple recent hangouts where we're discussing, well, what does it even mean when somebody says something's true? And when we agree that something's true, what are we saying about it? And I had brought up that recently I was giving some thought to Wittgenstein with the lion, right? With that, because of the lion's frame of reference being entirely different than yours, you wouldn't even understand, you wouldn't comprehend, even though you could understand the words they were using, you wouldn't even know what it was that they were actually talking about. And that he wouldn't have applied that to humans because there's a commonality between us, that we have a similar frame of reference that we can speak from. But even between individuals, what one means by something is going to be slightly different because our definitions and our terms and our propositions are predicated on other propositions that aren't shared between us. And so what I was trying to get at with him was maybe there is some. It gets a little fuzzier than we might think it is, or it gets a little more difficult to pin down what we mean when we agree that something's true. We could actually be arriving at different conclusions about, I guess, where that contact point is with reality, because the underlying propositions are different, or the underlying knowledge that we're presuming is shared is not actually shared. I don't know if that makes sense. It seems to me like a difficulty in having conversations and coming to true beliefs between individuals. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how to approach this. I mean, this really boils down to the problem of equivocation, of people simply having different background assumptions, which informs what they're talking about, so that when they hear you, they think you're talking about something else. They're filtering what you're saying through their understanding of those same terms, right? And people really are very anxious about the conflicts and the misunderstanding and the friction and the frustration that arises. But I don't worry too much about that. That is that and maybe I'm being trite here, but I mean that friction and frustration that you experience when you're at this kind of conceptual impasse where they're using a term a certain way, like I was just describing my understanding of how words fact, reality, and truth function, right, in our discourse, right. When I bump up against someone who sees it differently, I mean it's maddening, but that's precisely where the conversations get interesting, right? That's where the hard work starts to do, because that's where you have to become conscious of how you are using the term, because that's the problem, right? When ordinarily we think that the way we think of certain concepts is the right way of thinking about these concepts. We've got Tommy in the room here. He's someone who takes a different view on evolution than most of the rest of us in the room. He has a certain concept in mind about what he thinks evolution is and means, and I don't want to take the conversation in that direction. I'm just using it as an example. By my lights, he misunderstands the concept mightily, and by his lights, I misunderstand the concept mightily and what it implies and so forth, right? But that's where the conversation starts to get interesting, where we have to sort of, for the first time, think, well, geez, maybe I'm misusing the concept. Maybe I am misapprehending what the theory actually means and states and implies, what its consequences are. And it's the same thing when we're talking about concepts of truth, and especially in concepts of morality. I mean, people are really, we don't think very much about morality. We don't think much about what we take for granted about morality, right? I mean, that's one of the nice things about philosophy, is it forces you to actually think about the concepts that you employ tacitly, implicitly, without ever having thought about, without ever consciously having had to articulate them. And when you do articulate them for the first time, you then start to think of your background assumptions as propositions that can be called into question and evaluated and put on all fours with another person's concept. And I mean, that's actually valuable. That's when I find that conversations get sort of at their most profound. But in order to do that, you have to be willing to say, well, the concept that I have in mind is not just my concept, because I got it from somewhere. Presumably, it's not entirely idiosyncratic, right? I picked it up from hearing the word used, and I have inferred from the usages that I've been exposed to that this is what it means, which might be somewhat divergent from how another person sees it. But I mean, that is where the conversations get interesting, because it's only then that you can reevaluate your position. You're not going to reevaluate your position so long as what you think a concept is that's in your head is so implicit and so natural seeming to you that you can't even evaluate it as merely one possibility among others. I mean, Bert, you've had interactions with Trey Jadlow, right? And when he talks about contingency and aseity and stuff like that, I mean, it's apparent to me that his usage of some of these expressions is a little idiosyncratic, is at odds with how the broader philosophical community would use these terms. But he's someone who's sort of so wedded to these concepts, and I don't think has read up enough on them that he finds himself kind of at pains to understand what other people don't understand about what he's saying. He thinks other people are just sort of uttering nonsense, but I think it's because he hasn't treated his own understanding of these concepts as a particular way of understanding these concepts. Right? He thinks, no, this is just how they are, and everyone else is simply crazy for disagreeing with him. Right? Now and I'm not trying to sort of blacken Trey here. I mean, this is something that we all do. I'm just using him as an example because he's done it a lot, and I know you've had interactions with him specifically on that subject. And I think everyone here has read his posts on these and stuff like that. So this is the kind of thing that we do all the time. It happens with evolution. It happens a lot with morality. And it happens over and over again in concepts of truth. And within the context of the Great Debate, concepts of truth and reality and objectivity and subjectivity are just a mess. And nobody on either side of that debate is sort of particularly open-minded about it. I mean, people will just tell you, morality is subjective, and then, without argument, they'll just say it's subjective because people disagree about morality, right? Which is not a very good argument, but that's the kind of thing that goes on. And I hope that addresses what you were trying to get at.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, if I can interject, when we're talking about before, me and Bert, about the frame of reference, I don't want to be misunderstood, because I can see that. I specifically said, in advance, that I don't think that's a problem if we have a discussion between honest people. We can make up our mind, we can understand each other's definitions, and it's fine. Okay, the example I made, with Bert, that when he says he loves his wife and I love my wife, we might even come to an agreement, on what love is, and we might, find some similarities. We might also agree that each other loves his wife in the same way, or whatever. I mean, the concept is there. I don't see that as a big problem. That's just one of the things that people like to play in these hangouts. This is where they get really boring for me. I want to kill myself when I hear those kind of conversation. The problem that I was talking about when we were talking about frame of reference was exactly the problem, the example I made with the vector, and the fact that we might agree on a frame of reference, and it's okay. The main problem is that even if when we were talking about the word, epistemology before, okay? Once we come to an agreement, it's okay. I mean, we are all on the same page, we can have a conversation. But with other things, we might come to an agreement in order for me to try to understand what you mean by that, and in order for you to try to understand what I mean by that. But still, the frame of reference for some, for example, feelings or, even beliefs, it is your own frame of reference. And this is something that I can try to explain I might, be good at trying to convey my message, with words or whatever the hell. But still, I think there is a big issue there because again, you're filtering. I'm filtering what you say through my understanding of what you mean, and I've got to put it, in my experience. Now, this is my bloody frame of reference. And there is no way in hell that you will ever be able to get to my frame of reference. You can get near to that, we can get to an understanding, we can have a good conversation, and we can go outside and have a beer. It's all jolly and good. But still, again, there's some things that you will have to, to filter through yourself. And this is your own frame of reference. And this is where, the problem is, I think. I imagine. Sorry.
Is the problem related though to understanding your entire? Obviously, we have different worldviews, right? The beliefs that are informing who Fabio is and who I am are different. But could we come to potentially agreement on a given proposition, or with enough explanation of what we mean by something, land close enough?
Of course, yeah. I mean, we agree on something. We have to agree on something. We are social. We are a social species. This is what we are based on. We have to find some kind of agreement. As a species in general, there are exceptions, of course. But as a species in general, we are a social species. So we thrive to do that. We try to do that. It is something that we are. I would say we are good at doing. But when it comes down, to yourself, you gotta be aware that we really are unique. Okay, my mother dying and your mother dying, it is the same fact. It is objective. I mean, the person which gives birth to you died. Okay, I mean, you cannot be more objective than that. They're two different persons, but they're the same. The same, they're the same frame of reference for you. I mean, they literally are. Is it the same experience? Fuck no. I mean, my mother might have been, the worst person on earth, and might not feel, anything for her.
Yeah, I think that I disagree with the use of frame. I think the way I see frame of reference as being is the perspective or the point from which you're viewing and the angle along which you're viewing things, right? So like we have at any time I have tomorrow I'll have a different frame of reference for how I'm taking in the world than I do right now, right? And you and I, you being Italian, having grown up with very different experiences than I do, we have shared commonalities because of certain shared facts between us. But we could probably disagree on pineapple pizza, for instance, right? Because of our different frames of reference.
Well, it's not.
Oh my fucking God!
Oh my gosh!
I see what you did there. I will not even go there because you're a fucking troglodyte if you think about that. So I'll leave it there. And this is not a frame of reference. That's a fucking fact. So fuck you and your pineapple pizza. But yeah, I mean, I understand what you say, but I think this is different from what I was talking about. A good example of what you say would be, for example, the death penalty. Cesare Beccaria, which if you don't know who he is, you should go and look who the guy was. He was born not too far from where I live right now, in 17 something. He was the first proponent of why the death penalty is wrong. Okay, and I won't go through his, reasons. It was actually someone which was translated, and I think Jefferson it was really fond of the guy. So just you see, I'm building bridges with you, bloody Americans. I'm trying to, but it's pointless. Anyway, that might be my frame of reference regarding that. There is a cultural frame of reference. It's a given fact. We have accepted those reasons. We find them reasonable, and they're part of our culture. I think this is what you mean by frame of reference. What I mean by frame of reference, and still, it is always a problem of understanding. My frame of reference is, what do I do of the experiences, or the words that you're telling me about something? I've got to filter them through me, through my experience, and my experiences, they're partly social, they're partly cultural, they're partly because of the education, but I can fucking guarantee you, if I had a twin brother which went through the same experience that I did, he will, certainly be a different person. Okay, so there is something which builds in you, it modifies you, and it makes you who you are, and this is what I mean by frame frame experience, and that's what I meant on why the discussion we had with those guys, that we don't think it is possible to actually clone you into another media, to clone your mind into another media, because just the fact of cloning you, that would be another experience that the original would not have. So even if the cloning process, I know, I mean, that was a really complicated, discussion. It went on for, I think, 2.5 years. So I'm leaving out a lot of stuff here. But just the process of you being cloned, that's an experience that, you don't have and the clone has. So it's different and it's not you. Fuck it. End of discussion. The frame of reference is totally different.
Ozzy had mentioned in the chat he wanted to mention something about ocular metaphors, and then I wanted to ask you about
what are ocular metaphors?
No, that's why. Yeah, I want to hear about that. The other thing is I want to ask you about the normative qualities of true beliefs in terms of the moral case for talking to people about beliefs and persuading them out of positions where you feel you have a moral obligation. So, but go ahead for the ocular metaphors.
Ocular metaphors are just visual metaphors that have to do with ocular, the eyeballs. If you think about how we talk about how people understand things, how two people disagree on a subject, we use words like perspective, standpoint, your viewpoint, right? Things like that. How you see it, and well, I see it this way. How do you see it, right? Why all these visual metaphors? Why do we talk about perspective? Why do we talk about a viewpoint? Why do we talk about a standpoint? Why do we talk about how you see things and how I see things? What's going on there? It's because we implicitly understand that we are talking about one reality. But we all also implicitly understand that when two people are standing in a room, in different parts of the room, looking at the same object, they're seeing the same object, but where they are situated dictates that they will see something slightly different. And that explains what they see, what they can agree on, and it explains also what they will disagree on. Like, well, I can see this, and the other person says, well, I don't see that. Oh, well, no, the reason you can't see that is because you're over there. If I were there, I would see it your way too, right? That's why we use ocular metaphors, visual metaphors. But what I think is significant about that is not just that we use this handy-dandy visual metaphor, that it's that metaphor, all of those metaphors, and we use a ton of them. There are others, they're just not coming to mind right now, but there are other ocular metaphors that we use.
Sorry, can you just say the most dreaded word ever in these discussions, worldview?
Every time
I hear worldview, I literally want to bang my head in this fucking wall right here, right now.
Right. Now, worldview is another example, like your view on the world, your view of the world. It's always about viewing, it's always about seeing, it's always about where you're standing, your standpoint, your viewpoint, right? And it's because every one of these metaphors presupposes that there is a reality out there that is to be distinguished from your understanding of that reality, right? But when we are talking about something, we're talking about the reality. I'm not talking about my perspective on reality, except when I'm talking about my damn perspective on reality.
No,
so
absolutely.
People say, and the reason this is important is very often people will say, well, no, there's no absolute truth. There's just your truth and my truth. No, no, no. There's the truth, whatever the hell it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's reality, whatever the hell it is. And then there's your standpoint and my standpoint. That is your view of the truth and my view of the truth. That is subjective. That is, but what we're all trying to talk about is what is in fact the case, right? So the point of these ocular metaphors, the reason they are so apt and we reach for them constantly, and they seem so perfectly suited to where we disagree and where we do agree, is that they all presuppose that there is a way that reality is, which is to say, we all presuppose that there's a way that reality is. We wouldn't like those metaphors. We wouldn't reach for such metaphors. We wouldn't have so damn many of them if we weren't going around presupposing that there is, in fact, outside of our perspective on reality, a reality about which we can have a perspective. So that's what I want to say about ocular metaphors.
No, I mean, but I agree with you. The main problem is when you try to. I mean, every time I try to describe you something, it is something that I saw. It might be there. I see that. It goes through me, and then I describe it back to you. So, is there something lost in the process? I don't know. It might be. You know what I mean? So the fact that there is something real out there, that we can both see that, and then we internalize. I don't even know if it's a word. Is it a word, internalize?
Yeah.
There you go. We internalize, and then, and it's fine, and it's cool. It's great. I mean, if I were the only person in the world, I mean, the world would be fucking simple. It is. It isn't. Shit. Nobody's here, to complain about that. Nobody's here, to tell me I'm wrong. Fuck it. It is what it is. I'm the only person in the world. Deal with it, motherfuckers. The problem is, I'm drinking this wine, okay? And that's even more difficult because I'm looking at it, I'm smelling it, and I'm tasting it. Okay? I know exactly what it is. I know exactly how it tastes and exactly how it smells. Good fucking luck me trying to describe to you what the hell is this. Even if I give you the bottle and you have on paper the same experience as I have, it will not be the same experience, and you realize it is not the same experience the moment you try to describe it to someone else. I say, I can smell. I mean, I love those wine connoisseurs. I can smell tannin, and the person probably had a pee before mashing the grapes. Yeah, fuck you. But he might smell it, for fuck's sake. How can I say he didn't?
Well, that's true to a degree, though. The fact that we have a sweetener industry is evidence that there are objective facts about us that we all have similar reactions to sweet things, right? There are hold on, or if you take a somm who smells the wine, right? They're called somms, right?
Sommeliers.
Yeah. Sommeliers,
yeah. I'm drinking bloody wine. I want to eat a cigar.
You said we all have the same reaction to sweet. We'll all taste the sweet, but you ever notice, like, have you ever tried Asian desserts? They're never sweet.
Right.
And when they try our dessert, they're like, oh, what is this?
Right. There's also the fact that I think with the sweet is more an addiction problem than actually a taste problem.
My point was...
Hold on a second. Bert, make your point, because I have a point to make about what Fabio said.
So my point wasn't about that there are subjective differences. There are differences based on our experiences, which come through as subjectively different qualities that we experience when we taste something sweet. So if you're in a different culture, if you have different something happened to you have different biology from your parents, so there are differences between us, but those are based on objective qualities which lead to us having different subjective experiences. So go ahead, Christopher.
Well, I mean, what you're talking about is psychophysics, right? And that happens to be the area that I study. So what we can't do is provide evidence for what it is that you're talking about, Fabio. No one can show that your experience can be replicated. What we can do is show how fallible perception is, such that when we take white wines that are dry and we add red dye to them, and we have sommeliers rate them,
Fucking them up. Yeah, I know.
it totally destroys them because they're using visual cues.
Absolutely. I
Right?
totally agree.
They're using total visual cues, and they will rate the white wine with red wine adjectives.
Yes.
So we can't necessarily support the fact that they can tell that somebody had to take a piss before they stomped on the grapes. But what we can do is show how shitty their perception is when we try to fool them. Right? It's the Houdini factor. It's people who are really good at fooling people, showing how well and predictably people can be fooled.
Yeah, no, but I totally agree, and and I think this brings back to my point. If it's so easy to be fooled, but I still put a lot of weight on on my perception of how this wine tastes, and again this wine tastes in a certain way to me, and the fact that they might be fooled. What does it say? I mean, it still say they can have the same experience, and those are experiences. I have, inputs. I have, things which might be objective. I'm positive. You can take water, sugar, additive, and you can replicate this wine. And I can even tell you that if you make me taste, a glass of that ungodly stuff, I might even have the same experience as drinking that wine. Still, it boils down to the fact that I'm having on paper a different experience because the components are different.
But I agree, and Fabio,
and then I got to describe in the same way.
Well, good.
And
I'm glad you're back.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're back, Ozzy, because the way and I'm sorry that you missed what Fabio had to say, but I think that it ties into what you were listening to before you had to take your break. For me, the reason why, and this topic seems to be a riff off of something Bert and I were talking about, which is, true beliefs, what is truth, blah, 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 what are facts, truth, this, that, and the other, correspondence, reality, all that horseshit. For me, it is the difference between having a discussion about what is true, what is the truth, as compared to what our experience is, and what are our reasons, our justifiable reasons for thinking the things that we think are. And so I kind of wanted to bring that to the table, right? So Fabio, the point that you're making is your subjective experience of that wine. Even if you wrote it down in explicit detail, if you wrote a book, if you wrote books that filled a library about that sip of wine that you took, it still wouldn't bring anyone closer to having that experience the way that you have that experience. It's the difference between you describing your experience versus you saying this wine literally, objectively tastes this way.
Of course,
has this taste.
Yeah. And that's the whole point, of the frame of reference we're talking about,
Mm-hmm. But for me, the frame of reference, the frame of reference is the discussion. The frame of reference is what is, like when you have a dialogue with somebody who disagrees with you, it is about what is your frame of reference.
No, but
what
I understand that.
Contributes.
I understand that. Bert had the same objection, and I'm happy we clarified because we're talking past each other, and now it's way more clearer. So I don't know. How do you want to call that? Personal filter, whatever the fuck. It still boils down to that. Even if we have, in order for me to talk with you, we have to have a common frame of reference. Okay. I will define that as speaking more or less the same language and being honest with each other. Okay. I think that's a pretty good frame of reference. We can move on from that.
But even if there's overlap, there's always bits that don't overlap. Like if we're thinking Venn diagram, like this is me, this is you. We have this. We have a ton of overlap, a ton of threads of continuity in how we're describing things and how we understand things. There's still outlying things that make you, your perception you, and my perception mine.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, even if you're using a frame of reference that we both agree on, okay, that this is just a tool. Now, unless we want to talk about, grammar, or, I don't know, some other things that it is pertinent to the frame of reference that we have to agree on. If we use the frame of reference in order to describe something else, and I don't want to be boring, but if you remember the example I made with the vector with bird before, we have an entity which existed way before the frame of reference. Then we apply the frame of reference in order to describe the vector. Is it the vector? Yes, it is. It fucking is. In that frame of reference. So we have to agree to the frame of reference, we have to agree on the measures, we have to agree, on a lot of things, and then we describe the vector. But the vector existed way fucking before we agreed on the frame of reference.
Yes,
So
when we're talking about the coordinates,
yes,
that they only exist as a manifestation of the vector existing.
yeah,
That doesn't necessarily.
Yeah, but you see what we did there. I mean, we have to. I mean, saying we have to agree on the coordinates. It's an easy sentence. It is fucking difficult. It says that we have to agree on a frame of reference which basically describes all reality that we are fucking talking about. This is not something that I'm naive and I'm dumb. I don't think this is something that we will ever be able to agree. If we talk honestly with each other, we will never be able to agree on a frame of reference which is able to describe all of reality and our perception of reality. This is something which just doesn't happen. So the best thing we can do, and this is why I love the discussions, and I love to be proven wrong, is that we can try to make our best to find a container where we can describe our sensation, describe what we feel reality, describe what we feel is true or not, talk about that, make it our own, and think about that. I think this is the reason why in this whole room we all love Bert. And I'm not plugging the guy in. The guy is really a breath of fresh air. The guy has been doing hangouts where he has been shown and said, oh yeah, you know what, I think about that. I got, yeah, you make me think. This is trivial. Nobody fucking does that, But that funny guy with the hair,
Heat miser.
Hair.
The heat miser hair.
Yeah, but he's brilliant, and that's the reason I personally love to talk with that guy. Not because it's going to tell me that I'm right, or it's going to tell me that, oh, you make me think. We all love to talk with people which actually listen to us. And we have to do vice versa if we want to have a conversation, if we want to keep having a conversation, So I think that's the main issue with the frame of reference. If we aspire to have a common frame of reference, well, fuck it. Let's get drunk, and let's go and shit on the sidewalk, because that's gonna be more fun. And we will all agree on that. Yeah, why not?
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but if we want to have a discussion, we just have to, the biggest thing we might aspire is to have, a common subset of things. We work from that, and if we disagree, we just tell each other to fuck off, and next day we have a coffee together.
I'm already to shit on the sidewalk, Fabio.
There you go.
That's I hear that's the new fistful assault.
I'm halfway there, man.
No, I know.
Yeah, and I'm in my underwears.
So along one thing I want to make a little shift here, only because I'm done talking about the vector and the robots and the AI. What I wanted to talk about was another thing that Christopher and I had talked about, and this is how we started this hangout. So I conveyed a story that back when I was in college, I taught Bible studies with individuals and had a few gay friends who I had Bible studies with, trying to, and in a couple of cases, brought them into Christianity, encouraging them along the way, and not the focus of the Bible study, but certainly the focus of bringing them into the faith was for them to have to be healed and not have these homosexual urges, to have that alleviated from them, and that Jesus through the gospel could work to do that. Hold on, Fabio.
No. Yeah, but I got something really important to say. Sorry.
Sure. No, go for it.
No, I'm really sorry. I never do that. I was just reading the side chat.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Hall says, that you can find any culture where it's fun to harm children, for fun. I beg to differ. And I can give you an example which happened 40 years ago, 30 kilometers from where I live. Sant'Anna di Stazzema. Check it out. The SS went into a village. Among the things that they did, they carved open women which were pregnant. They took the baby, they were throwing up in the air, and they were shooting at the babies in the air for fun.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's
you said exactly that.
No, I didn't say it doesn't happen. I never said that it would never happen. I'm just saying the people of society.
You said, I would say everyone in all cultures through history would say that it's always wrong to hurt someone for fun. That's not true. I just gave you an example.
What I just said doesn't say that they didn't actually do it. I mean, I could say lying. I could say the same thing about lying. That lying is always wrong, but yet I could lie and actually do the thing that I say is wrong.
I'm not talking about your morals. I'm talking about what you wrote. It's there. Unless I'm lying.
You could fix your statement by saying, take out the for fun part, because a lot of times it's for revenge or other reasons.
Yeah.
For fun it really limits what you're trying to put across, I think. I mean, I'm just looking at it. If you want objective morality, for fun kind of ruins it, doesn't it?
No, the for fun is important, because the for fun, everyone will harm someone if they think that they have a morally
rationalization.
Yeah, if they think they have a morally compelling reason to do something, then they'll do it. Do the very thing that in other circumstances would be morally objectionable, right? To say that you think you have a good moral reason for doing something is to say that you have a reason that makes the act moral when it otherwise would not be moral.
Yeah, it's the
that's
game.
But that's why you have to put in the for fun, because when you put in the for fun, then people go, wait a minute, if the reason you're doing it now is for fun, it's not for a morally compelling reason. It's for fun, and that's the whole point. That's why it's not gratuitous to throw in wanton cruelty, or because think of a sadist. That's what sadists do. The people who are cruel can be motivated by revenge. They could be motivated by all kinds of things. Money. There's all kinds of things why a person might engage in cruel acts. Okay, and that's to be distinguished from callousness, which a person can be hurtful and do the same thing as a cruel person, but they're not doing it to be cruel. They're just doing it out of carelessness, recklessness, simple lack of consideration, but not out to hurt someone. Okay, but a sadist is being cruel for a specific reason. They enjoy it. They delight in a person's suffering, and like a child, delighting in the torture of a small animal or something like that, or an insect, right? And when we look at that, we go, well, wait a minute. The reason, the motivation that they're doing it isn't that they think that there's some higher moral purpose or reason for doing it. It's just their own enjoyment. They're just getting off on it. And that's why whenever people use those examples, raping babies for fun, right, as opposed to raping babies because if I don't, an alien race is going to exterminate the entire population. Well, okay, listen, maybe under those circumstances, maybe that would be a morally compelling reason to rape a baby, even though we all recognize that would be heinous under other normal circumstances, right? But doing it for fun, well, wait a minute, right? Surely people would agree on that. And that's why Tommy used that example. That's why everyone uses those kinds of qualifiers in these moral cases. It's an everything case where
the problem is
moral compelling reason.
Yeah, but the problem is that it actually happened, and the people which, made, that massacre over there, which I described to you, they were, they were perfectly fine with that, and they would probably had, a very high moral with that. I mean, they were bloody SS. The moral was different. And their moral was perfectly legit.
Okay, hang on a second.
To give that example and to act like that.
Okay, hang on. Okay, fair enough. So I guess to back up, I could have maybe should not have used the word everyone. But even so, like with the people that in wartime, people have a way of having their thoughts sort of altered. People kind of get brainwashed, especially in that situation with the Nazis. There was a big propaganda campaign, and there was a lot of top-down attempts to alter people's thinking. And so, in that kind of situation, I think they were sort of brainwashed. If you had taken those same people who did that before the war, would they be the kind of people who would throw babies up in the world and shoot them? I think it was because of their experiences that they were.
No. I want Bert to return to the topic, but again, the brainwash angle doesn't work with those guys.
We can return to this.
Sorry about that.
Shortly or in the off air or.
My bad.
No, it's fine. So jumping way back, what I realized, and Christopher and I have had conversations about whether you should be making arguments for atheism or whether you should be advancing any positions and persuading people out of positions that they hold. And I've used several analogies about my wife going out driving with dangerous conditions and her not being convinced of it, or that there are scenarios where I feel I have an obligation to persuade someone otherwise because I am taking the situation differently than them. But when I got away from the hangout that night, I was thinking about it, and I've said many times that I would go back and punch myself in the face for having converted or attempted to convert, or in some cases did convert individuals to Christianity who were gay, who left I
like how specific you are about where you would punch yourself. I would punch myself. It's not that you would just punch yourself. I would punch myself in the face.
I might go for the nuts for the second shot.
Right in the fucking throat.
Throat, or in the ear, like Fight Club in the ear. But the point being that I held beliefs that now I consider to be harmful or detrimental or pernicious towards the well-being of others, and that we are not in a position to ever, I think I'm in a better position now, and I have certain moral oughts that I feel I'm driven by, and that part of those are persuading others out of positions that I see being harmful. But it fights me against this notion that there was a time where I was also of that opinion and arguing completely the opposite of where I am. And so either Ozzy or anyone else, in terms of how do you view your obligation out of moral obligation to persuade people otherwise when you see it having consequences, when in fact you don't know that you are in a position to that you won't regret down the road. So
I think this is one point where Ozzy and I might disagree, because in the side chat, Ozzy gave a hell yes. Right?
Yeah, Maudie, why don't you give the hell no, and then I'll give the hell yes.
Oh, okay. So for me, the reason why I would go hell no is because the way that they... unless there is evidence that the person that I'm talking to has influence outside of their private boundaries, then what occurs within their private boundaries is private, which means I'm on a need-to-know basis. And I am not to influence that privacy. If they go out in public, if it is known that they're going to go out in public and do something to follow through that manifests on these ideas that I disagree with, then I think that the risk perception, remember we were talking about that, Bert, the risk perception kind of shifts a little bit. And of course, yeah, I guess I'm going to leave it at that. So depending on what they're doing in their private life, and they have their structure, and I disagree with it, is what it is. Right, so long as it's not obvious that they're harming children and simple shit like that. But if they're going to take these ideas on board and move into the public sphere and try to, you know, whatever, do things that are going to influence other people that disagree with them, and they're just going to persist in their attempts to persuade and move forward their agenda, then I feel a little bit more compelled to be like, yeah, well, that's a little fucked up. So that's why my plan A is not necessarily to, you know, try to persuade them otherwise. That's my plan A.
Yeah, okay, I see it differently. Your view is sometimes summarized, and you can disagree with it, and then I'll change it accordingly if you do. But it's sometimes summarized as, you know, I don't care what another person believes, or if they believe in God for something. If it doesn't, you know, break my arm or pick my pocket, I don't care, right? Jefferson had a line like that, and that's the view that unless another person's beliefs affect me, I don't have to be concerned about them. Or unless their beliefs affect another person, like in their voting behavior or something like that, I don't need to be concerned. And I think that the circle of my concern extends to the person that I'm talking to. If I see that a person is operating under a set of beliefs that I think are going to be harmful to them, I think I have a moral obligation to try to talk them out of it. Not in every instance, right? I mean, sometimes it's an opportunity, and sometimes I think.
Oh. We lost him. Oh boy.
Right in the middle of a good point, too.
Yeah.
God, I don't want to hear the rest of that point. Ozzy, come back!
I was hoping I could white box his face, but I can't get it up there. So.
Oh, it's all black.
Okay, so Christopher, did you want to wait for him to come back before you?
I mean, I'll fill time because dead air sucks. Based on what I heard him say, and I'm sure he was only halfway through his point, right? I think that it is audacious and presumptive to think that you are an arbiter of what other people should do in general. Right? So that is my plan A. And he did qualify it. He said, I'm paraphrasing, he pretty much said, you know, on a case-by-case basis, not in every situation, right? And so on that point, I'll agree with him, but as a plan A, I would rather step aside and let people do what they want. I'd rather be laissez-faire. I'd rather be hands-off than to think that my way of thinking has so much gravity that I should start persuading people that I disagree with that they should stop thinking the way that they do, right? So, and that has everything to do with the way that he framed harming themselves. Well, if I don't know you and I see that you're harming yourself, I'll do the best that I can. Let me give you a perfectly practical point. I was literally on the phone with Shanna the other night, and I'm walking through the streets of Philadelphia. She literally heard me help somebody who was passed out in the middle of the sidewalk, right? Somebody who was potentially causing harm to themselves. I wasn't trying to persuade them to do anything, but I was trying to protect them from them. Some young woman, some 20-something girl, was literally passed out in the middle of the sidewalk. There was a cop a block away, and she was sprawled out on the fucking sidewalks of West Philly. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but West Philly's not... It's Philly. I'm just going to leave it at that. Shannon and I are in the middle of talking, and so I go like, hey... I immediately cut the conversation off, and I'm like, you are asleep in the middle of the sidewalk. I help her up. I have her sit down on the steps of the 7-Eleven she's in front of. I go to the cop. I express my concern for that person's health. Keep in mind, I am not persuading that person to do anything other than sit the fuck down because you're so hammered you can't even, you're passed out in the middle of the goddamn sidewalk. But then Plan B kicked in because I saw her walk away from that 7-Eleven after I talked to the cop, expressing to them my concern about the safety of this person who was shit-hammered drunk late night in West Philly. I run after her, find a security guard, and have that security guard escort her to a group of friends that she said was meeting at a restaurant locally. Okay? Plan A is not to persuade her to do anything, but having a concern for her safety. Having a concern for her safety, making sure that she is safe. So it's not really a matter of persuading her because she wasn't in a frame of mind to be persuaded. She kept telling me how fine she was as she was trying to stand still, and me and the security guard are holding her up. Okay? So my determination of her safety was paramount in that particular situation. But I think that that is not a case in point. I don't think that that is the kinds of general conversations that I have. In general, the conversations that I have are with people that I disagree with. Of course, I disagreed with this person. She thought that she was perfectly fine and could walk to this restaurant, get on her bike, and ride her bike to South Philly. I told her in no uncertain terms, you are not doing this. And made sure that a security guard in the area walked her to wherever she said her friends were so that she could get home safely. Because we disagreed, I wasn't persuading her because I thought I was right and she was wrong. This is a very specific scenario. She was shit-hammered. Shit-hammered to the point where she was laying in the middle of the goddamn sidewalk in Philadelphia. That's a special case. In general, I'm not talking to people that are in that situation. I'm talking to people that I just happen to disagree with. And in those situations, the line that is crossed between looking out for their safety and my opinion of what their safety is and their opinion of what their safety is for themselves or for others is a little bit more blurred. And that's what can be brought to the table in a civil discussion. Ozzy's back, so I think that it's more appropriate to let him talk than to let me talk.
Thanks. And I apologize for my abrupt departure there. I was upstairs in a room. My laptop wasn't plugged in, and my battery just kicked out all at once. I tried to say, the screen's gone blank. I hope you can still hear me. Anyway, I'm back in my usual spot, and I'm plugged in. Yeah, so what I was saying is, my view is that I think that I have moral obligations that extend even to a person who disagrees with me, where their beliefs will not impact on me or anybody else, but they will have an impact on them. I mean, if I thought someone was going to harm themselves, come to some immediate harm because they were operating under some delusion or misapprehension, and by delusion I just mean a mistaken belief. I don't mean that they're they're delusional, right? Just that they're deluded about something. They're mistaken about something, perhaps radically. Then I think I would have an obligation to try to talk them out of it. It wouldn't give me an obligation to coerce them in any way, but to rationally persuade them, right? Now, of course, the person can say, well, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, well, you don't want to talk about it. Okay. Unless I have some, stake in it myself, then I'm not going to talk about it. I'll just say, okay, fine. Are you sure about this? Because I think you're making a terrible mistake, and I think you do well to listen to a different opinion, right? But I don't think there's anything objectionable about talking to people about what they say they believe. I think that one of the highest compliments you can pay to a person is to give them the respect of taking their beliefs seriously, even where they don't affect you, and say, listen, these beliefs are consequential to you. You are organizing your life around these beliefs. They may never impact on me. They may never impact on anyone else, but they're consequential to you. And if you care about your beliefs being true, and I happen to be in possession of some arguments that I think should undermine your confidence and perhaps even cause you to revise your beliefs, then I think I have an obligation, given that I think that you're mistaken and that you will suffer for operating with a defective map of reality. I have an obligation to tell you about this. This is not the same as imposing my beliefs. And there are a lot of people who sort of say, who are you to tell me? Well, who do I have to be to tell you?
You have to be somebody who matters to that person.
No.
And if you don't accept that, then that is audacious and presumptive.
No. Well, let me say why. Okay. if I want to persuade the person, I have to be able to approach them in such a way that they will respect what I say. If a person doesn't care what I say, it doesn't matter how much they love me or respect me. Okay, if a person is sufficiently dogmatic, it doesn't matter how much they love and care about you; they'll still ignore you. Okay, and if a person thinks that you're a complete imbecile, it doesn't matter how good your reasons are. Right? If they don't respect you as a person, they might just not heed anything that you have to say. No matter how disastrously wrong-headed they are and how right
But
you are.
that's almost a false dichotomy.
No, it's not. It's not. I'm not making a dichotomy. Wait, let me get the point out. I'm not making a dichotomy. The point is, there's nothing morally wrong. Pragmatically, it's foolish to try to talk people out of a position when you know that they don't hold you in enough regard or they don't esteem your position enough to take it seriously. Pragmatically, okay, that's not very effective. But it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with trying. And I do think that we have an obligation to try to reach people who disagree with us. And it's also very, very hard to predict what will reach people. This is a discussion I've had with Yves Riehl a number of times. I mean, people know that my approach in discussions is fairly amicable and conciliatory. I try to be respectful. But I also recognize that there are different approaches. Like, laughter, ridicule, and scorn and derision actually have their place because that's what works on some people, right? That's what actually fires up some people, and then they want to shoot back, and then they have to do some thinking, right? So I mean, my approach, I think, is is more effective for getting a person to reconsider his or her position and to take my position more seriously. But it's not the only way, and you don't always know. And so I think that because other people should matter to us, if by our lights they are going to do something by acting on their beliefs that's going to be harmful to them, that's going to impoverish their lives, then we have a moral obligation and a duty to try to talk them out of it and to use the methods that will work. I mean, you can't just be stupid about this. And that's no different than when a religious person looks at me and says, "Oh, listen, Ozzy, your atheism is going to put you straight to hell. You might not do anything about it. You might not talk about atheism. You might not teach your kids to believe that you believe and stuff like that. Maybe no one will be affected by your beliefs, but your soul is in peril, right? That person is doing me a kindness when they preach the gospel to me, okay? I don't take umbrage that they do that, and I often bristle when I hear atheists say, "Oh, I can't stand when people preach to me." Hey, listen, if they're just doing it because they're trying to follow the rule that says preach the gospel, then okay, then they're just rule followers, and I don't care. But when people are actually moved by, hey, I like that person, I really would like them to be saved too, right? That, I think, is not something to take umbrage at. That shows the person respect. That's the person showing you some respect, and I show the same respect when I see a person that I disagree with, and I say, hey, well, listen, I hear what you're saying, but I disagree, and here's why. That doesn't mean that you have to ruin every Thanksgiving dinner and unleash on the first person you see wearing a cross around it.
No, and Ozzy, and that's a point that we agree on. Being able to challenge, and the way with which we challenge, is the entrance of that challenge. I guess the point of contention that I have is, when do you give that challenge up? At what point do you realize that the person is not dogmatic and they do show you respect, but at the same time you're pushing the point beyond what is socially appropriate?
Oh, well, that's different, though. I mean, I have an obligation to try to persuade a person, and if I see that the person is unpersuadable for whatever reason, either they don't respect me, they don't like my arguments, or they've heard my arguments, they think their arguments are superior, right? And I see that my arguments are just sort of bouncing off of them ineffectively, then I don't think I have an obligation to doggedly persist and hound them. I don't think that it's appropriate to hector people. The only reason you would do that is if you thought the stakes were so high, like they were going to kill themselves, or ruin themselves financially, and make it a disaster of their lives, right? I mean, I think that going around believing in Christianity and feeling all the misplaced guilt that a lot of Christians and Jews and Muslims feel and stuff like that, that I think is unfortunate. That alone is worth trying to disabuse people of these false beliefs. But that's not the worst thing that you can experience. You can suffer worse things. And you also have to be careful that when you do disabuse people of their beliefs, if you succeed, you could be putting them in a worse place psychologically. I mean, I think it's actually true that religion serves as a crutch, in many cases, and some people need that crutch. There are some people that I think have been so beholden to something like divine command theory and a simplistic, quick and dirty ethical position that if you just sort of yank that out from under them, they undergo a kind of moral disequilibrium, and they don't know what to do. And some people will actually do stupid things, not necessarily start raping and killing. Nobody actually does that. Just because they become an atheist, that's sort of a fantasy that people have, but that doesn't happen. But people can, in fact, lose their moral equilibrium and screw things up for themselves. So I think we have to be responsible in how we do this. But the fact that there are risks that you could hurt a person, that you could annoy a person, you could even potentially lose a friendship over it. Doesn't mean that you don't have an obligation, and of course it's all in the execution. You have to be conscientious. You have to be sensitive to what the person will listen to. I mean, I've had a number of.
So I agree. I agree that it's a case-by-case basis, but I also think that it is. I don't know. I guess we're talking past each other, because on a case-by-case basis, yes, we are in agreement, and I guess the topic of conversation for me was in general. And in general, I think it is audacious, the position that you hold. I think that is presumptive or presumptuous. I don't know what the appropriate word is. The position that you hold.
What am I presuming?
Well,
you're presuming that what you think is correct should be conveyed to the person that you're talking to
of course,
in such a way that they don't know. No,
because I think it's because, look, everything I hold.
But it goes. It
comes
down to the question that you ask: who do I have to be? You have to be somebody who matters to the person that you're talking to.
No,
because
of
if
course
you don't,
not. You've never been talked into a different position by someone you didn't care about. Chances are, Maute, practically every important theoretical change in your position, outlook you've ever had, has been effectuated by someone you didn't even know, who's just a stranger on the internet, or words on a page, right? You don't have to care about it. I mean, we are.
No. I think that's bullshit. I think that it's.
You've never picked up a book.
I think that it's.
I think that author whose views are
my opinion has been changed. My opinion has been changed by people that I don't know, that had no knowledge of who I was, that I pursued their information on purpose because I happen to have a position where I want my ideas challenged, right?
You've never had your views.
That's totally, but that's not what we're talking about.
You've never had your views challenged by someone against your will and changed.
Hold on a second. We're talking about I thought we were talking about one-to-one interactions.
Okay.
Where there are intentions to persuade based on what one agent thinks is more valid, right, than the person that they're talking to. I think that is the presumptive part. You're presuming that you know better than the person you're talking to.
You always do. You always do when you disagree with someone.
I understand. That's the difference.
Hang on. Every minute that you think that you are in possession of something that's true and the other person is incorrect, that is to say, every time you disagree with someone, you are in the position of thinking that you're correct and they're incorrect. That's not presumption. That's what it is to hold a belief. It's to think that I think X is true and another person thinks X is not true.
But that's very different than persuasion. Of course I think that. Of course, when I say something...
That's the presumption you're accusing me of.
I'm not done talking. Of course, when I say something and somebody disagrees with it, I think that I'm right and they are wrong.
Right.
Then there is a choice.
How presumptuous of you.
Then there is a choice to be made to persuade that person that my position is correct and they should uphold my position.
No. Wait a minute. Stop. To try to persuade someone is to try to presumably rationally persuade them, not coerce them, and not to sort of emotionally crowbar them into holding your belief, right? I mean, that would be presumptuous if you were trying to do that, right? But when you're just trying to persuade a person, what you're trying to say is, look, here are my reasons. I'm appealing to your sense of rationality, okay? Your respect.
See, according to that very liberal definition of persuasion, we agree. I was using a more colloquial definition where it's like, I intend to change your mind.
Well,
right?
I do.
When I give my reasons, my justifiable reasons for my beliefs, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just trying to make you understand why I think what I think. If you should take that on board...
Why do you bother? Why do you bother?
Because he's trusting the other person to deliberate.
Right, in the expectation that that is what will persuade them. Right. This is about rational persuasion.
No,
what I'm advocating here.
you're framing it all in persuasive terms, and that's not the case.
Well, I thought that's
sometimes
what we're
discussion is
talking about,
discussion.
Christopher, can you? Christopher,
I actually view it like Christopher does, and I know that sounds weird, but that's how I view it. I view it a lot more like that.
I don't mean to end this conversation, but I need to go pee real quick. I'll be back in just a minute.
Wait, let me try to talk you out of that.
No, my bladder's full, Ozzy.
Go, man.
This is like that hangout that we had on Deeper Than Dogma, or is that the word I'm looking for? Yeah, Deeper Than. I watch another podcast with a similar name, Deeper Than Dogma, right? The one with Floyd and everybody. And the one that Mahdi set up that ended up kind of a disaster with DPR and Skeptic Fence. Skeptic Fence was like, yeah, I'm on Team Understanding, and he said, I want to make people understand, and you can't make people do anything, right? I view understanding as like, let's put this on the table. You can pick up what I'm laying down or not, but at least you know. And you can lay down your cards on the table, and I can pick up what you're laying down or not, but let me deliberate. You can judge for yourself, and I can judge for myself, and that's that. Where persuasion is more of an argument in my mind. Matt Bell was team persuasion, and he was very firm on that pretty much everything's persuasion. And it shows when he talks to people. So I see it a little more like Mahdi. You see it all intertwined or the same, Ozzy?
See what all intertwined? I mean, I'm talking
persuasion and understanding.
I was expressing that I think we have a moral obligation to try to change people's minds when we think that they're mistaken. That doesn't mean that you have to hector people. You have to be rude. And that you use illicit means of trying to change their mind, but that you should use the means of respectful, rational persuasion. That is, you abide by the norms of rational and civil discourse. That's how you should do it. And that, I think, is showing a person respect. There's almost no greater form of condescension than saying, okay, well, I think you're completely wrong, but it doesn't affect me, so I don't care. I mean, that's simply saying, I don't care that you're walking around with a defective map. I don't care what happens to you. It's not going to hurt me, so screw you. That is pure selfishness. I mean, I think that the circle of my compassion extends a little further than that, and there's a certain amount of altruism that's required to say, hey, listen, I know this generates some social awkwardness here, but I think you're really mistaken on this political position or this religious position or this particular attitude that you hold about this or whatever, right? And it's not presumptuous to say my view is right. Everybody thinks that their view is right. That's what it is to have a view, to have a position, to have a belief, right? It's to think that a certain thing is the case. And it's not presumptuous to think that if I'm right and another person disagrees with me, that they're wrong. What would be presumptuous would be to say, well, I couldn't be mistaken. Right? Well, of course, that would be presumptuous, but no one's saying, I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting being dogmatic and trying to use illicit means. It's simply a matter of recognizing that we have a disagreement, and to the extent that I think your beliefs are consequential, even only to yourself, then I think I have a responsibility to try to persuade you in a way that is civil, respectful, and rational, not by other means. Those other means are no good. Those other means are, that's just fighting dirty, and you shouldn't do that. And if a person says, okay, well, I've heard your reasons, I'm still not persuaded. Okay, well, listen, if I've used the tools of rationality and they didn't work on you, then there's two possibilities. My arguments are not as good as I think they are, or you're not respecting the reasons well enough, and it might take more time. It might take another conversation. That's it. All right? And then you just have the conversation another day if it comes up. Right? As for who do you have to be, that's a rhetorical question to point out that you don't have to be anybody in particular.
And how do you know your map's not faulty?
Nobody knows that their map is.
So we're all persuading, not knowing if our map is faulty. So we're so convinced to persuade.
Wait, hang on. This is what's mistaken here, okay? If I had to be certain, I wouldn't be allowed to change a person's mind about anything, even if it was consequential to me and everybody else in the world, right? You don't have to be in possession of certainty to have a disagreement with someone. I don't have to know that I couldn't be mistaken about my map, right? You have a map, I have a map. I go, hey, I think your map's wrong. Why? Well, here's the reasons why I think your map is wrong and why my map is right. And that's the conversation that you have to have. If the conversation could only proceed under conditions where I say it is impossible for me to have a mistaken map, then what your position is this: you're only entitled to have a disagreement with a person and try to persuade them under the conditions of a dogmatist. Only when you're a dogmatist about your position should you be able to do this. Well, no, I'm not a dogmatist, and those are not the only conditions where I can have this conversation. I mean, have you ever known a person who held beliefs that were not going to affect you or anyone around them, but were going to be disastrous to themselves, right? Where they might make themselves penniless, where they were wasting money on some weird cult or a pyramid scheme or something like that? I mean, you're just not going to do anything because it doesn't pick your pocket, it doesn't break your arm, it doesn't affect their voting behavior, right? You're just going to let them go. You're going to let someone sink everything that they have into a pyramid scheme and lose their house and impoverish themselves? Of course you wouldn't, right? The difficulty here is this: we are talking about subjects.
Everything's not that dire. That's
no,
the
no,
risk
no,
perception
that's
component.
exactly what I was trying to get at. This is the exact point I'm going to make. What happens though is that people who are not believers, okay, have a tendency to think, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because there is no heaven and hell, so it doesn't matter. No great evil is going to befall them. But I disagree with that. People waste their lives worrying about things that they shouldn't worry about, feeling guilt over things they shouldn't feel guilt about, scrupulously observing rituals and observances that are a complete waste of time and that are robbing them of other things, diverting their attention from worthwhile, genuinely gratifying pursuits in order to scrutinize the Bible one more time and read one more commentary about it, right? Now, if those beliefs are incorrect, those people are in fact wasting all of that time. Now, it's their time to waste, but I wouldn't want to be wasting my time, and they don't want to be wasting their time either. If you can convince them that they're wasting their time, they will thank you. Hey, listen, I'm glad you disabused me of this. Right? They won't thank you now as long as they hold that position. If you want to sort of experience someone saying, "Hey, thanks for disabusing me of this position," you actually have to go to the trouble of disabusing them of their position. But in the case of the Great Debate, very often it's very hard to point to the facts. You can't demonstrate that there's no God. You can't demonstrate that there's no heaven and hell. It's harder to do. The conversation has to go on longer, and so people have a tendency to shrug their shoulders and say, "Well, I can't do this in a conversation. It doesn't pick my pocket or break my arm. It's not going to wreck their lives, in the immediate future. So I'll just let them labor under their misapprehensions." But that, I think, is actually showing people a certain amount of disrespect and a lack of concern and compassion for their well-being. And so I think we do have an obligation. But that doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it. Right? I mean, don't be a dick always applies.
Yeah, can I offer this a little bit back, but along the same lines, is that presumably as well there are reasons which undergird the position that you hold that you're trying to be persuasive of, and those reasons matter, right? Like those will be the ingredients as to why, to some degree, why they should hold this other position. And so I think it's not that you're coming in and stipulating or laying down something that doesn't have any ties, right? Like the whole point of it is that you think it because it actually ties to something that you think you can demonstrate or you think you can persuade someone of. And if you don't actually have the grounding there and they don't listen to you, maybe you need to revise, or maybe you need to be the one that maybe that isn't, obviously when I was having those Bible studies with gay students who I was doing so with not a whole lot of time invested in those beliefs and not a lot of investigation done. And probably had anybody met me and pressed me on it, I probably would have crumbled. I probably wouldn't have fallen apart. But I don't know. I guess I see it that it's not just simply the conclusions. There are reasons behind your underlying, what you're trying to persuade someone of, and that you would think that those actually matter, that those reasons actually have some impact. There's some reason behind it. So, did you want to go, Chris? So I was also going to say that I've certainly found myself taking a more there's a lot of big issues in America, obviously, right now, and there are worldwide, but we have particular issues we're dealing with here, and along the same lines as the New York Times putting out an editorial on guns on the front page, I feel like to some degree my airing of the views and my entertaining discussion and having civil dialogue with others, exposing them to ideas that I have, I'm hoping that it influences change in them so that we can have conversations about some of these issues where I think we have to have change. It's a little like what I was saying to you, Christopher, in that like I can't necessarily affect them on some something I care about without actually affecting the underlying propositions which influence their worldview. So if they hold certain dispositions that I'm not able to, if I can't speak to those, I can't persuade them out of something that I feel is of moral consequence to society, right?
I don't know where to go with that, because that takes it to a different level. Like, all right, there are people I disagree with. Let's keep this as general as possible, because when we get into specifics, we fuck everything up, because we all agree it's a case-by-case basis, right? So in general, what's your plan A? Is your plan A to persuade? Is your plan A to understand? If you're trying to understand, then
you have to understand to persuade.
I agree with that, okay? In order to persuade the best, you need to understand where they're coming from so that you know which way of persuasion is going to work best. Is that kind of where you're going, Ozzy?
You can't get as far as persuading a person unless you understand their position, because you will immediately be strawmanning their position if you're mistaken, unless you happen to just be lucky and get it right despite understanding their reasons. I mean, part of persuading is understanding not just what they believe but why they believe it. Mm-hmm. And once you understand that, then you can figure out, okay, well, given how they see it, now I understand. Now I can formulate a strategy for undermining their belief, and that's what this is about, right? I mean, this is how you persuade. You undermine a person's reasons and confidence, right? And sometimes you undermine their motives by showing that their motives are that they're ill motivated, that they're poorly motivated beliefs. And that's how you proceed. But for that, you have to have some understanding of the person's psychology, and you have to have a certain amount of social intelligence. It's not just a matter of, well, what is your syllogism? There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
And of course that demands a certain amount of respect and patience. You have to be willing to listen to the person and hear them
But
out.
at the same time, the fact that you would tack on persuasion at the end of the understanding component, there are some of us that just want to understand. That's it. That is the goal.
That's
not
okay.
Understanding towards persuasion.
I don't have any objection to people who want to understand. I just think that I thought we were talking about whether or not we have any kind of obligation or duty to either persuade, or obligation or duty to avoid persuading, or it's just some kind of neutral position that one can take. Well, my view is that no.
That's a good point to bring up, because that's it's the duty obligation point, because I brought up a distinction that I think exists between persuasion versus understanding, and you kind of broke it down by saying, well, you can do both. You can understand, and then based on your understanding, persuade better. Right? Is that a fair assessment of how that went?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, so
I think it's the same. Sorry, I don't want to interject here, but I think it's the same. In more practical terms. When we have this kind of discussions, they happen every so often. People ask about gun control in the U.S. I mean, I can try to persuade you till I get blue in the face from my point of view why one view is better than the other. But unless I don't try to understand you, that you have a legislative system, where apparently, some rights are there while we haven't, we will never have a proper conversation. I will stand from my viewpoint, even if the goal is the same. Sometimes even the tools that you use require us to understand the other person's viewpoint. And that's the same, with gun control or death penalty. The example I made before. The reason we don't
or
have
death penalty by gun.
Death penalty by gun. Yeah, there you go. I mean, the main reason we don't have death penalty around here is, mostly because of philosophical reasons. Okay, that guy Cesare Beccaria made a wonderful job, in past times. He convinced, made a really good argument. People, went with that argument. They made part of the culture and the society, and it is ingrained on how they think. Now, if I want to apply my reasoning to that topic with someone from China or from Saudi Arabia or from Texas, I would be that would be a big problem, because the even if the topic is the same, the level we start from are completely different. So I might as well try to persuade them in Italian, and they don't understand a single word of that, and my argument will be pristine, perfect. But if you don't try to understand the guy, there is some issues there.
He was too busy talking about his weird boner.
It's so weird right now. It's weird.
Yeah,
I don't even.
I love the fact that people is watching that, see me trying to get a point in a language which is not mine, and these three assholes are talking about boners in the side chat. So you guys have got to know that, okay?
It makes
These
sense
guys,
to me.
It's,
No.
For the record, it's Maute who's talking about boners in the side chat. It's not me.
Yeah, you see, I mean, yeah.
And for the record, it is Ozzy that is instigating my weird boner.
Have you got
Ozzy chops wood. That's what happens.
Yeah, besides me and Deidre, okay, have you got in the US that saying that the first chicken which sings is the one which laid the egg? Because this has just happened. I just said something, and someone, sang all of a sudden with no provocation. But anyway, please, what about the boner? You want to see my dick?
No, I mean, not that I don't want to see your dick. I mean, braciole is delicious, and so is sausage. But that's not what we're talking about, Fabio.
Is this an Italian
For
thing?
fuck's sake.
Is this an Italian thing?
No, I don't fucking
Yeah, just like Taylor Ham was a Jersey thing last night.
Good.
That's probably an Italo-American thing.
I'm an Italian.
We despise those people. They think they're Italian. They're nothing.
There's nothing like a ring of pineapple on it, man.
There you go.
Pineapple.
That's bloody throwback.
Isn't that like a Dr. Ruth something? No, it's not Ring of Pine. It's the donuts. Anyway, look it up. Dr. Ruth donuts throwing them on a penis. Look it up. It's a thing. Anywho, the point that I wanted to
So is
make
grapefruit. YouTube that.
Bringing us back.
I'm trying so
Thank
hard.
you, Bert. Thank you, Bert.
Trying so hard. I think everything that we're talking about has to do with how you're approaching things. It really has more to do with the intent of the person, of the actors that are into. I always mispronounce this word.
Interlocutor.
Thank you. Interlocutors. I mean, I have a horrible understanding of the English language, the human language, the American language.
It just means the people you're speaking to.
Yes. It depends on the intentions of the people that are engaging.
Not just the intentions, their execution, right? They have to have the right intentions. They have to be.
But doesn't the execution follow from? Isn't it manifest from the intentions?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why both matter. Like if my intention to persuade you is simply to pone you and humiliate you and make myself look smart, that's a terrible thing to do. And chances are my execution is not going to be particularly effective. I'm probably not going to persuade you. I might persuade other people watching who are not sympathetic to you, but you're probably going to shut down really quickly as soon as you feel that attitude, that vibe coming off me. So intentions obviously matter, but so does your execution. There are a lot of people out there who have the best of intentions. Someone in the live chat was saying, Lalu was saying, the high pressure sales pitch style is unproductive, and it is very unproductive. People are sort of, barking at you through a blowhorn. That's not very effective. People who are just talking at you and not hearing your position at all. For instance, not listening to your objections as you raise them and stuff like that. People who are playing off of a script. Those people are not very persuasive, and other people don't. They just induce people to shut down, right? Even if they are well motivated, even if they are concerned, as I suggest people should be, about other people's false beliefs. Right? Now here's another thing, though. Here's, I think, the sort of the background concern that, because you were saying let's speak at a level of greater generality. At the level of greater generality, what people are concerned about with persuasion in these kinds of conversations, what they're worried about is that somebody's going to come around and try to crowbar me out of my beliefs, and they're going to treat me disrespectfully. Right? That's what's going on all the time. Right? People are going around talking to people, trying to get them to change their mind, using all kinds of dirty tactics, arguments that they know have been debunked and stuff like that. Raw appeals to emotion, exploiting people's vulnerabilities, things like that, right? Or trying to humiliate them and stuff like that. I mean, when people are doing that kind of thing, and that goes on so much, we get sick at the idea of people trying to talk us out of our beliefs. There's too many people who try to talk us out of our beliefs for the wrong reasons and in the wrong ways, and then it just leaves a bad taste in our mouths when it comes to talking about, do we have an obligation to talk people out of their beliefs? I think we do have an obligation to talk people out of their beliefs, but there's a way to talk to people. You have to have the right motivations. Yet that is, you have to be concerned for their welfare and their well-being, and those. If anybody else who might be affected, but even in the cases where they're the only person affected, you have to be concerned for their welfare and their well-being, and you have to be trying to do it in a way that you would want to be persuaded. That is, with respect, with a person understanding your position and your reasons, and trying to rationally persuade you, not trick you into believing something. Right? You want to believe things for the right reasons. And that's how you should approach it. That's why you shouldn't ever use an argument that you know is a bad argument or a false argument. It's disrespectful. So when I say that we have an obligation to talk people out of their false beliefs, even when it doesn't affect us, even when it only affects them, I think it should go without saying, but let me make it explicit here, that I'm talking about doing it for those reasons and not some other reason, and doing it in accordance with the norms of rationality and civil discourse. And I think it's really, that's the way I try to have my conversations. So, I mean, look at me, how I do these conversations. I don't think I'm especially disrespectful. I talk too long and I interrupt, but
I am so disrespected right now.
No, but that's true. That's even more so, when people use this, definitions that they know people don't agree with, just drive their point. That's another thing, which is not only blatantly stupid because it goes anywhere, but it is disrespectful. If you want, it all boils down, to the conversation that me and Bert were having before, about frame of reference. Even if we were coming from different angles, I think we agreed on that. Is it a nice segue, Christopher? You wish you would have done that, but you're a fucking chimpanzee.
What the fuck are you talking about? That was the Maute pivot. Thank you for picking up on it.
Yeah, fuck you too. It all boils down to that. If you want to have a real, poignant conversation with someone, and you want to learn something, and learning something might also be, changing your point of view. You got to, first of all, you got to be honest. You got to find, a frame of reference, and you got to be willing to accept the fact that you might be wrong. Which I think it boils down. It's the same thing as being honest, but it's not exactly the same thing. And unfortunately, in discussion like that, we don't see that kind of approach too much. People see saying, you know what, yeah, I was wrong, or I think about that as a sign of weakness, and they turn this potentially, really nice conversation into a charade and a pissing contest. And these, by the way, nobody's interested about that. But that's one of the things which made me go away, from that kind of environment for some time. I think you get to a point where
I think that you're talking about people's egos, and I think that people's egos feeds into the point that Ozzy was making about what it is that we're obliged to do. Because if your ego is big enough, then you feel obliged to do a shit ton of things that you think are right. Whereas if your ego, and I'm using the ego term in a very rhetorical, colloquial sense, right? If your ego is smaller, it's just like, oh well, I think these things, and I don't feel the imperative to follow through on what I consider an obligation.
Well, I think
And that's my ego talking, trying
no,
to convince you that that's an ego thing, right, Lee?
no, no. I agree, but I think this is where the conversation with you intertwined. I mean, I can actually see Ozzy's point. If I believe in something, that you're doing it wrong, I mean, because I value you, and of course you got to value me because it would be a pointless conversation. I feel the urge to tell you,
Italian is a social construct. Sorry, just had to say that.
Yeah, I'm processing that in background. But I've got to feel the urge, to tell, Chris, but I think you're fucking, this thing up. You might want to reconsider that stuff. Now, the problem is, when you get to a point that the person you're having the conversation with is still stuck in that position, you're not able to persuade that. This is where I think you should, take, I would say a step back, but, try to, or either reconsider your approach or think about, as we said before, that probably a direct approach is not the most constructive one. So you might want to find, some angles. But I can feel, someone, saying, oh, yeah, I mean, to me, it's an imperative, to try to talk you out of this thing, which I think it's fucked up. Okay.
Can I offer a thought before we get too far with that, Fabio? Is it in regards to the community? I think that there's so there's two things I want to say. Is that first is that I've had occasions where I come in strong with something and I get pushback from 3 or 4 people, and have been fortunate enough to take it as that. Wow, wait, am I wrong here? And have to actually back off. And I've actually, I don't know that happens enough. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just saying that I think often, we were in a thread recently about the Kalam, and there was only one person on one side, and the rest are making really like the same point over and over again. And instead of someone going and revising and taking a look at that, they're so dug in that I think you have to it's a lot of it's about attitudes, right, and how you approach things.
Yeah.
I think one other thing that I want to say about the community is that there's a high price to be paid for being wrong or admitting you're wrong. People being wrong in this community get trounced. They have videos made up about them, and to some degree they bring the ridicule on themselves because they're completely asinine, and so they make it such that individuals thrive when they're completely shit on, or they take a completely ridiculous view and look absurd. But as well, I think that I brought it up before about deists. I think to some degree their unwillingness to commit to something stronger sometimes is looked down upon as hedging their bets, or that type of being reserved is actually frowned upon. And so I think to some degree the community kind of gets what it gets sometimes.
No, I agree. I mean, if you talk about the community in general, I agree. And that's why, before I stressed out so much, and even before, I always try to, when I'm making that point, I always say that the first thing is being honest. If you want to have a conversation, you gotta be honest. I often talk about things that I'm not an expert in. I just, try to give my point of view, which is, most of the time wrong, and people which knows more about it, they tell me, well, they either tell me, fuck off, you're wrong, or they try, to talk me into the fact that they're wrong, Well, Christopher would tell me to fuck off, I'm wrong, and Ozzy would tell me, Ozzy, you're probably wrong. And it's okay, there are two approaches. The problem is that, when I'm talking about those things, even if it's my point of view, I think there is one thing that people which knows me have to give it to me. I try to be honest with myself, and I have no dog in this fight. So if someone tells me I'm wrong, besides the fact I don't give a flying fuck what other people think about that, I don't take it as a personal insult. I don't think that my life is in shambles because of that. I don't care. You know, again, you know, it depends on how you approach the conversation. Do you want to approach the conversation to get something from the people that you have in front of you? You know, we talked about that before, but why the fuck? I mean, the question everybody should make is, you know, why the fuck are we in these hangouts? We are here to learn, and to me, as we said before, you know, and you said it too, you know, it's because you basically like people. You love to hear the point of view. You love to hear, you know, people which have a different, you know, culture, you know, the different studies. They think about on the same topics because they might have, you know, a really interesting idea that it is difficult to find out in your own society. If you approach the conversation with that point of view, really, I mean, I love when people tell me, you know what, you really fucked it up around there. You know, I told you about, you know, uh, as I, you know, I tried to speak, you know, with Oz about aesthetics, you know, at the beginning, you know, when we had the conversation, and we had a little bit of chat about that, and he actually you know, schooled me on some things that, you know, it's not my field. I think this just, you know, fascinating to me, and just said, you know what, I mean, there's a couple of things that which you're really making it wrong. I mean, great. It is great. I mean, I have a resource here. You know, I have you in your field of study. I have Ozzy. I mean, Deidre, she's a beautiful person, you know, and I can teach so much from this person. Well, have you noticed how I left, you know, Christopher out of the equation because he's a fucking chimpanzee? But you know, I can learn from you people, and
What do you mean, you people? No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, I can learn from you guys. And what is the alternative? The alternative is me trying to find reference. You know, I got to go to a library, buy a book, you know, read it up, you know, and make up my own mind. I mean, it takes some. This is such a really good shortcut if you want to talk about that with, you know, with people that, you know, I appreciate for their honesty. You know, granted, if one of you in the panel is someone that, you know, I don't consider to be honest, but just a big, huge asshole, he might be the voice of truth, okay? He might be, even if he is the biggest scholar ever, I will probably, you know, not even listen to that because it's the attitude, you know. Sometimes the message is the attitude.
Right. I would say that the message is the attitude. I mean, like, I don't know, maybe I'm in left field or not, but I think delivery really matters. If I feel like you're here to rape and pillage and score points for your ego or your side, or maybe you have a grudge, you know, like anything that kind of flags that, I am less inclined to want to engage with you. If you are coming from a caring point of view, even if you're an anti-theist, and I'm convinced you're coming from a caring point of view, I'm more likely to listen to you, right? And I would say that the same comes from the theist. If the theist is just clocking in their card going, well, I need some points with God today, and he told me to go out into all the world and preach the gospel, ting, and I got to do it, but I know that most of you are going to hell, and I don't really care. No, you know, I just want to win favor. I mean, I think an atheist can read that a mile away. If you are insincere, nobody likes it. And
no, oh, sorry, Deidre. I didn't want
go
to
ahead.
interrupt
Go
you.
ahead. Am I missing
No, I
anything?
mean, no. What I meant is that, you know, we have to face the fact that, at least to my understanding, nobody in these hangouts, I mean literally nobody, is a pillar in his own field. Okay, nobody. We don't have a Nobel Prize or someone which, you know, publish, you know, 45, you know, 100, you know, peer-reviewed articles in his own field, and he can stand up and says, you know what, fuck you all, you know, because I am, you know, one of the most respected person in my field, and you got to listen. We don't have this kind of person around here. We have people which, you know, they are really, really, really good and literate in their own fields, and they try to explain stuff, you know, like, I mean, we've got Ozzy here, you know, I mean, we got this kind of people. So we have to listen to that people. But because of nobody is a bloody giant, nobody can come up and say, fuck you all, you don't understand a flying fuck, this is the truth, and deal with it. So when I say that the attitude is the message, it's also that what I really meant. You got to try to put yourself and try to explain the things to the people that you're facing right now.
Amen, Fabio.
Yeah, no, I mean, because the risk really, the risk is that your message is lost. Okay, if you act like a dick and you talk like a prick, it doesn't matter what you say. I'm not willing to listen to you, especially on a topic that it's not. It's not my field of work. It's not that if I know more about philosophy or God or moral theory or whatever the hell we're talking about, I'm gonna make more money, or I'm gonna buy a bigger car, or my family is gonna be better. Well, if I do that, it's just for my personal interest. Now, I can understand someone, might get frustrated when they're talking with people which they think they know a lot of shit and they don't know nothing. I can get that. I can totally get that. But again, you get the conversation you deserve. Mm-hmm. If you talk with shitheads, you probably you end up in a big pile of shit, and then it's really tough to complain about the smell. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I maybe that's a good note to end the hangout on, because we're definitely not in a pile of shit here.
That pile of shit.
Yeah, we don't. We smell like flowers. There's no. You know what? I completely agree with you in terms of I enjoy these conversations, and I have taken a lot from that sentiment of you get the conversations you deserve, and if you don't like what you're experiencing, which I saw a thread maybe a week ago go around about how this community is dead, and there's a lot of good conversations being had, and if you don't like the ones you're in, go find other people to talk to, and there's plenty of really engaging people. I appreciate all of you guys. Fabio, thank you so much for spending this time with us, and late night in Italy, and the change of wardrobe was fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you to Lee and to Deirdre and Ozzy and Chris bringing some fireworks. I appreciated it. And that's a handy clip to bring out when people say that there's a bunch of Aussie robots. Anytime we get a little disagreement, then it just demonstrates that's not the case. So.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Great. Boner.
Boner.